Come to Sam Ash for hundreds of exclusive holiday deals on music and sound gear from the most iconic brands. Save big on professional and starter guitars, drums, digital pianos, horns, violins, DJ, and electronic production equipment. Supercharge your home studio with deals on podcasting, streaming, and AV equipment like speakers, microphones, headphones, and acoustic treatment. Plus, with 36 months no-interest financing on thousands of items, you can get the gear of your dreams right now. From our incredible selection and service to our lowest price guarantee for over 95 years, real musicians know you only go to Sam Ash.
At Life's a Beach Realty, we're all about life on the beach. Stunning Panama City Beach and one of the most beautiful properties on the Gulf Coast, Shores of Panama. Radiant, elegant, and spectacular. Steps away from white sugar sand, every room overlooks the turquoise of the Gulf of Mexico. Come in for your tour today. Life's a Beach Realty is your gateway to Shores of Panama, the shores, and a whole lot more.
You're now in the Sports Web, a sports talk show for the hardcore fan. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the evolution of Sports Talk Television, live here nightly on Bucks Report. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. And as we always say here, bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. On tonight's show, we'll recap the NFC and AFC championship games as Super Bowl 54 is set in Miami, as it will feature the San Francisco 49ers, led by former Buck John Lynch as the general manager, versus the Kansas City Chiefs, which it's been 50 years since the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. Of course, you remember the first one, Kansas City versus Green Bay. Green Bay won that matchup. Of course, you probably don't remember it, but there you go. So that's what we got in store tonight. We'll also talk about what Steve Young said about what the Bucs should do with Jameis Winston, and what is the latest rumor involving the Tampa Bay Buccaneer quarterback situation. All that and more on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Join the 64,000 following we have here on Facebook, also on Twitter and YouTube tonight. An open phone line, 813-699-5353. That is 813-699-5353. Definitely get on the phone lines here. If you have something to say, say it. A lot of people say there's nothing local for me. There's no radio. There's no TV. No, that's not true at all. It's right here on the Sports Web, live nightly on Bucks Report. So let's go ahead and read some comments here. Go Buccaneers. Philip Rivers not going to be the Buccaneers just because his family moving to Florida. I see Philip Rivers going to the Dolphins or the Jaguars. A lot of people have said that, so we can get into it. What's going on, Javon? What's going on? Brandon Spikes. What's going on? Go Buccaneers. And let's go ahead and recap the NFC and the AFC championship game. Let's start with the AFC first. Kansas City wins over the Tennessee Titans 35-24, down 17-7 in this game. Patrick Mahomes definitely made a lot of money yesterday. 23 for 35, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, and also led the Chiefs in rushing with 8 carries for 53 yards. Damian Williams, 17 carries for 45 yards. Sammy Watkins led all receivers with 7 catches for 114. Kelsey with 330. You got Tyreek Hill, who was a nuisance yesterday. But once again, the Chiefs get down like they did last week to the Texans, 24-0. They get down 17-7. Derrick Henry is looking like a beast. But credit to where credit is due. The Chiefs definitely shut him down holding him to only 69 yards and 19 carries. You have Ryan Tannehill, 21 for 31, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Corey Davis, 5 for 65. At the end of the day, the Titans could not match up with the Chiefs. The only thing they really had going into this game was Derrick Henry. And once again, credit to where credit is due. This Chiefs defense showed up. They shut down Derrick Henry, got up on them, and the Titans had no answer after that. Of course, they're not that type of team that can come back when they're down. And once they got down 21-17, once you get away from the running game and you put it in Ryan Tannehill's hands, it's not going to work out too well. So Kansas City making it back to the Super Bowl after a 50-year hiatus. Leo Ward, and of course, Andy Reid, just 15 years ago, was also in the Super Bowl versus, I believe, I'm trying to think now, Philadelphia versus the New England Patriots, the Owens game where Owens was playing on a broken ankle. He's making his way back. So a lot of storylines already setting up for this matchup in Miami. Let's go to the NFC. 49ers 37-20 over the Green Bay Packers. Jimmy Garoppolo 6 for 8. That's it. 8 passes in the game. 77 yards. The story was Raheem Mostert, 29 carries, 220, 4 touchdowns. Unbelievable game. After losing Tevin Coleman, it really didn't matter. And this is what the 49ers are right now. They're going to bust you in the face, and then they're going to get after your quarterback. 3 sacks by the defense. Richard Sherman with an interception. He makes his way back to the Super Bowl. So congratulations to John Lynch. And as a lot of Buccaneer fans will remind you this year, congratulations to Quan Alexander, who, by the way, missed the majority of the season, but good for him. He has an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. So what do you think of the matchup? Do you like it? 813-699-5353. That is 813-699-5353. What's going on, Blake? Go Bucks, go. Repping my team. Okay. Corey says 49ers defense and offense look good. Packers defense and offense look like garbage. What's going on, JR? KC offense unstoppable. Well, I got to tell you something, and this is where the matchup is lying, right? It's number 1 offense versus number 1 defense. And I don't know if you've looked back in history, but usually that favors the defense. Just saying. And I think John Lynch has definitely built that team up with guys like Bosa and Armstead and DeForest Buckner and Dee Ford and with the trade, and then basically helping your back end out with a Richard Sherman and doing everything you can offensively to take the pressure off of Jimmy Garoppolo. Do I think he's a bad quarterback? No. But right now, they feel like they can run the ball. So if they're running the ball at that clip, and you look at the carries yesterday for Mostert, 29 carries for 220, if you're able to run the ball and you get up in the game and you have that time of possession, basically you keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, which, by the way, 31 for 39, 326, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles. And even he was saying that the window could be closing on this Packer team. And you kind of look at it, they went all in this year by going into free agency, getting guys that could rush and get after with the 2 Smith guys, Preston and Zadarius, but only running the ball 12 times because basically they got taken out of their game. Their defense could not get off the field. So a disappointing effort by the defense of the Green Bay Packers. And once again, when you become one-dimensional, this is what you are. This is how it goes. So the Green Bay Packers lose. The San Francisco 49ers move on. 49ers, you're welcome for Alexander. Light doesn't know how to budget. Well, he didn't make an impact. I mean, he wasn't an impact this year, Will, for this team. He really wasn't. So everybody talking about how, he was an impact for this team. He's going to win a Super Bowl. He very well may win a Super Bowl ring. It doesn't mean he had a big part of it, okay? So let's just stop all that nonsense about him doing this and doing that. I'm glad we got the 49ers-Chiefs matchup for the Super Bowl. Great defense versus great offense. We'll see what wins out. Like I said, Ben, it's always comes down to defense, and I think it will come down to defense. But we'll talk about it more and more. We'll have Al Keck, 40-year man, Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, on tomorrow night, breaking down this Super Bowl matchup, going back and breaking down the NFC and the AFC championship games. What's going on? Anwar, trade Jason Light for John Lynch, GM offseason. Don't think that's going to happen. Will Mann, yes, Light is a bad GM, but Quan missed 18 games for the Bucks in 4 years. He was here now, missed 6 games this year, so he wasn't missed that much. He went to a team that was already built well. Did you know Zadarius Smith was a Shrine defensive MVP? Jimmy G was a Shrine game MVP as well. And of course, we're talking about the East-West Shrine game, which once again, Bucks Report. Thanks a lot for tuning in to that broadcast of the Sports Web, and of course, interviewing the quarterback, James Morgan from FIU, which was very cool. So those games definitely matter. The East-West Shrine game, they matter. So you have to watch out for those prospects. And I love John Runyon Jr. We'll get more into him later on in this draft process, because we have a lot of talking about draft and prospects and stuff like that. But let's get to what Steve Young happened to say about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and what they should do with Jameis Winston on the evolution of sports talk television. Here we go.
It's funny because I'm involved in this story, right? And Doug Williams, myself, and Trent Dilfer, and there's quarterbacks that played in Tampa that went on to win Super Bowls. I know it shouldn't be in the context, but I feel like there's something to Tampa Bay holding on to their quarterback and doing it. Look, there's no question that Jameis was reckless, but he was like spectacularly reckless. And by the end of the season, I felt like, look, I would love to take Jameis Winston and try to refine the backside of all that stuff that cost all those turnovers and all that recklessness, and take all the positive and really believe that Jameis can be their franchise quarterback into the future. I think they'd be nuts to turn the corner from Jameis. I think Jameis is their future. Let's re-sign him. Let's get him coached up to get rid of the recklessness. Let's go all in.
So there you go. He says, let's go all in. And welcome back to the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. Open phone line. I don't know what you guys are doing tonight. Are you guys sleeping? Are you awake? You got all this news about Steve Young. You got news about Phillip Rivers. You got news about NFC Championship and AFC Championship. And you guys are sitting there with your thumbs up where. 813-699-5353. 813-699-5353. Open phone line. Use it. So what basically Steve Young said is, it kind of involves him. It kind of involves Doug Williams and Trent Dilfer, and where this organization has failed with developing young quarterbacks and letting those quarterbacks go to other teams and win Super Bowls. And he even said that the Bucs should definitely sign him because he was spectacularly, what's the word he said there? And was pretty funny, erratic or something along those lines. So to me, if the quarterback is saying that, that's a Hall of Famer. Maybe he knows just a little something. All right, let's go out to the phone lines. Welcome to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, what's going on? It's Will.
What's going on, Will? How you doing?
I'm all right. It's freezing cold here in Wisconsin, so my knee is in lots of pain today. Other than that, I'm great.
All right, I
want to mildly defend my comment. I was not saying I wanted to keep Alexander here.
Mm-hmm.
I was just making the comment of, well, you guys got him because we didn't have the cap space to even keep him if we wanted to. That's all my comment was all about. So on with that. I heard this rumor, and I'm actually okay with this. If this rumor is true, I heard there was talk of a Jameis Winston deal for 3 years, anywhere between 23 and 26 million.
Do you think 23 and 26 million? So it's 3 years for how much?
That's 3 years, anywhere between 23 to 26 million a year.
What did you hear that at?
And oh gosh, my buddy sent me the article, and I can't remember where it was from. And I said, if it's a Jaguars Blake Bortles contract where it's all the incentives are in the front, where we can bail out if he's not performing the way we like, then yeah, I'm okay with that. But if it's, all the incentives are going to be in the back end, then I'm not okay with it, it's got to be something that's going to be friendly to Balog.
Well, I don't understand this because, and I get everybody wants to watch the cap, but it's not your money. It's not any fan's money. Let them take care of it. Mike Greenberg got hired for a reason. He's taking care of the salary cap the last couple years. And I get it. People are saying, well, Jason Light's a terrible GM. He's got talent there. And also this salary cap, they have less dead money than any other NFL team. So let them handle it. You're not going through salary cap.
No, what I'm saying is, I'm not talking salary cap wise. I'm saying if say we're giving him, $75 million for 3 years, okay, and the incentives are in the front, so his guaranteed money is in the front end of the deal, and then in the second, in the second or third year, we're not happy, and we end up cutting him. Well, we're not going to take that big of a hit. You know what I mean? Where if it's spread evenly throughout the contract, we're going to take a hit. You know what I mean?
I don't think you're going to take any. I don't think you're going to take any hit because those guys definitely know how to work a contract, and you're going to have at least $91 to $94 million of salary cap. So you can afford to pay 26, 27, or $30 million. That's the going rate. Once again.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm just saying what I heard.
Well, I just be careful of what you hear because those people that put that stuff out there, they don't have any idea. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have an idea what the Bucs are going to do. I could sit here and tell you what I think they should do. I could tell you I could do the same thing too. I mean, everyone's got an opinion. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, and most of them stink. So. Right. But what I'm saying is, I'm amazed at how many capologists we have out there in the Tampa Bay area. I'm amazed by this. It's not your money. You're not taking it out of your pocket and paying Winston. And I gotta believe if they have $91 to $94 million, okay, they're gonna be able to still sign Shaq Barrett and all these other players that they're gonna sign. If they don't sign them, then I have trust in the organization with Jason Light and Bruce Arians that they're going to make the right moves because Mike Greenberg has done a good job with basically making the salary cap very friendly. Go ahead.
I agree. And, the only other thing that I'm worried about, and I know you've had a couple guys on here last week, and it was talking about the draft. And I saw every draft prediction that I'm seeing, it shows the Bucs drafting secondary, and I honestly cannot see why you would see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafting another guy in the first round in the secondary. Well, I just really cannot see that even possible.
It's a great point. Well, because they've drafted 9 players since 2016. You have a young developing safety. Is there a Grant Delpit there? Is that the player you want? Is it an Isaiah Simmons who kind of plays a hyper position, not only linebacker, but can play some safety? Is that a player you want to draft? For me, if you're going in the right direction, you draft an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, depending on what you do in free agency. Once again, for my money, I'm going after Jake Conklin from the Tennessee Titans, who's 26 years old as a right tackle. If you fill that need, then most likely you don't necessarily have to draft offensive tackle with the first pick. Okay, but if you go that way, then somebody off that defensive line is going. Is it a Ndamukong Suh? If it's a Suh, then you look at somebody like a Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina. You look at somebody like a Derek Brown if he falls to Auburn. You never know because the combine kind of skews things a little bit. And then if you lose a JPP, you keep a Suh. Then you look at somebody like a Chasen from LSU or the kid from Penn State. There's a couple edge rushers out there that you're definitely going to look at. But it just depends on what you do in free agency.
You never know what's going to happen. Right. I mean, it's all speculation right now.
Sure.
And the big thing that I can see happening, honestly, is that JPP stays, Shaq stays, and Winston stays.
Okay.
The big question mark for me is with Suh. Is he going to stay or is he going to go? Is he willing to take less money? I highly doubt it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he's willing to take less money, and that will be a decision that this organization will have to, basically factor in. How does that affect? If Suh takes this money, can you sign JP or Shaq Barrett? But, for me, at the end of the day, they've done a damn good job with, basically making that cap very friendly with less dead money than any other NFL team. Anything else?
I think we need to focus on offensive line and defensive line because, like it was stated earlier with last week, we have no rotation really on the offensive line. So we need to focus on offensive line and filling the defensive line. I think that's all we need to focus on the draft. And anybody that's really saying secondary, I think is smoking something that they should be sharing.
I could see where they would go with safety at that position if it's a special safety. That's definitely a possibility, but I don't see it happening at this juncture. Thanks a lot, Will, for the call. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, open phone line 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. Let's go out to the webheads here. Missed you guys over the weekend. Hope you enjoyed the playoff games. What do you think about Super Bowl 54 with the San Francisco 49ers and John Lynch? With a lot of people saying this weekend on Facebook and other social media platforms, man, we should have had John Lynch as a general manager. Well, Bucks let him go. He went to the Denver Broncos, got into broadcasting, and the rest is history. You can't go back. Hindsight is 2020. Let's go out to the phone lines. Mr. Blake Anthony of Blake and Blake Sports, Buck and Blake Sports, which can be usually seen and heard here on Mondays and Fridays. What's on your mind? Welcome to the Sports Web. And he's gone. So it was not a very good call by Blake. So open phone line once again. Call back 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. Let's go out to the webheads here and let's read some comments, and then we'll get back to what you guys want to talk about. Let's see. Okay, we talked about that. All right, here comes Blake. All right, Blake, welcome back. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. A couple things. The Quan, when they talk about Quan, every time we lose a player, everybody goes, "We told you so." The Niners didn't need Quan to make the Super Bowl. They missed all season. Quan did exactly what the problem was before. He can't stay healthy. He'll make good plays, and then he'll miss half the season. And the biggest issue was we're not going to pay him $15 million. San Francisco kind of lost out on the deal because they're owing him $15 million a season when you didn't need him to get there. When they drafted Greenlaw, that replaced him easily and got to the Super Bowl. Yep. That was one thing. And Steve Young, with Steve Young's comments, I've always watched Steve Young. I grew up watching Steve Young, being on the West Coast as a child. Steve Young makes hints at things that you got to read between the lines of what he's saying. Steve Young said without saying that Tampa needs to learn from their lessons and stop trying to move on from quarterbacks so quickly when you're not letting them develop and putting them in successful situations. And Steve Young's one of those guys, which you stated previously with Doug Williams and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean,
you were going to say something?
Blake, what if you had Steve Young, right? What if they did what the San Francisco 49ers did, which is either put him on the bench or develop him or put something around him? Who knows what Steve Young could have been in a Buccaneer uniform, right?
We'll never know.
We'll never know now. Right. So,
and he said it himself, like he could have really rubbed it in Tampa Bay for that. Like he's just trying to say that again. You guys need to really learn from your lessons and try to hold on to some of the blessings that you get, and then try to fix their demons and try to move on that way instead of trying to keep repeating the cycle that you've been doing on. But you and I have said this 1,000 times already. Yep. I'm not going to reiterate it no more.
That's all right.
Because I've said it. But I'll move on to the next thing. The other part, when they talking about John Lynch and Jason Light and stuff like that, when you pick up different players and they have different success rates, it really is opportunity too. And the situations that they're put in. A lot of players that already had successful things going for them, it's a lot easier to plug a guy in and they have quicker success than it is when you plug somebody into like our system that's catching up, and you don't get the same success rate. So those are why things happen like that. And it's not necessarily that Light makes horrible picks. Well, he had that one bad draft, but for the best part, he's made with undrafted players. He's recovered from that draft with some of the players he's picked that played in those Shrine games, that went undrafted. So he's made up for that, finding talent that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he definitely deserves some credit with making the trade for JPP. I think he deserves some credit for Shaq Barrett and the way he played this year with 19 and a half sacks, even though the NFL felt like I'm trying to think. TJ Watt was a better edge rusher than Shaq Barrett. I don't get it, but whatever. Who cares? It's numbers. At the end of the day, he led the NFL in sacks, and that's a find where you get him on a 1-year contract. Brashard Perryman at first didn't look so good, but performed better when he got comfortable. So it's not like you don't have talent here. You got Devin White. You got Vita Vea, who he's been responsible for. O.J. Howard, maybe not so much, but Cam Brady found him off the scrap heap. So people got to give him credit and also give him criticism. You can't just say, well, he's a terrible GM in all facets. I wish we could get rid of him. Okay, well, you also
and then give me reasons why.
Right.
Give the reasons why he's that bad.
Right.
And then give the reasons why not. Now, I bet you the reasons why not will outweigh the reasons that he are.
Now, does it come down to Jameis Winston in his success going forward? Absolutely. It's a big part of it.
Yeah, I agree.
That's his player. That's his pick. So remember, that's also a factor. If you decide to move on from Jameis Winston, does that seat get a little hotter for Jason Light? Just saying.
Yep, especially if he goes somewhere like Dallas, where we keep saying you put him somewhere where you can take the passing attempts off and you can just hand the ball off to a potential Pro Bowl running back. But we keep saying the same thing, but we're still in the same spot. Here 4 years later, we're still talking about the same thing.
Yep. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, those are also Jason Light picks. You don't want Jason Light, then you don't get those picks. I mean, be fair about it. I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't drafted some bust. He has. I've said that on this show, but to say that this team is inept, Leo word of talent is ridiculous. Go ahead.
It's far from inept and talent. I will agree that we expected things out of O.J. Howard that he just never showed in college, and then we expected him to do things like Gronkowski that he never did in college and he never did it in the pro level. Mm-hmm. He's just not that guy, and everybody keeps waiting for that. He's not a guy that's going to go like Gronkowski, be one-on-one in the goal line and beat linebackers and DBs and jump balls. He's just never done that, and we keep waiting for that, and it's not going to happen. He's just not as physical as a Gronkowski type player when we were hoping for the best. So that was one thing that we were wrong at. I mean, I think we were kind of forced into that pick. We saw all this talent that we could get out of him, and we kind of got chumped into that pick, thinking we were getting a more athletic tight end had the potential to do these things.
I was never a fan of that pick. I want to say that right now. I was never a fan of that pick. I wasn't a fan of the pick when it came out. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought the media down here was on this whole thing of, well, you can't draft a running back because it's Dalvin Cook and he's Florida State, and you put him with Jameis Winston, and they're going to have all kinds of trouble off the field, and you don't draft a running back with the first round, and blah, 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 and all that freaking nonsense. And now you see what Cook has and what he's been able to do with the Minnesota Vikings. It's disappointing. And every time I talk about picking an O.J. Howard or a Dalvin Cook, I get pissed off. Go ahead. Make me happy.
Yep, he's making you happy. I mean, and that's the reason to get mad at, and that is a Jason Light pick.
Right.
So when people say you're not biased, you are. You just showed that you're mad at that pick. So you're right, and Minnesota does have a better offensive line than us. We don't know if Dalvin Cook would be good in the system. We don't know if he'll run like that here in Tampa Bay because we refuse to invest in our front seven, except for defense last year. We refuse to invest in our front offensive linemen and be a powerhouse like these other running teams. But hopefully we can change that coming in the future. I agree with Conklin, like you said earlier, that coming a free agent, filling up that right tackle spot. I believe he won't demand that much money as the other left tackle that they have there, which his name slips my mind right now, in Tennessee. But I think Conklin won't cost that much, but it's going to cost for alignment because that's things teams don't give up. And the success rate that Tennessee's had with him this season will be in such a great running offensive alignment. I doubt they would want to let him go if it happens. Yeah, and to talk about what Will Mann said earlier, Frankie said, he said he's just not sure, if people want to go secondary in the draft. I could understand that because remember we're playing with Darian Stewart and Andrew Adams in the absence of Evans that was out all season. We don't know if he can come back and play at all. So safety is a position we can look at. But I'm definitely telling y'all to stay away from Delpit. He's a poor man's Adams, and Derwin James. He's not what I thought he was.
Well, if he's a poor man's Adams, he's not. He's just going to be a poor man at that point. I mean, he's not even up. He's not even in that situation where he's a Jamal Adams, and I get it. But also remember, you have Evans, but not only Evans, you also have Mike Edwards, who they drafted second round last year.
Played great.
Safety. And you also have Whitehead, who a lot of people forgot about, who was playing well. So I'm not necessarily sure where the Bucs go. I think they're happy with the secondary. And I would caution people with this. If you're so interested in them going out and getting a veteran, you get that veteran presence, good. But then again, you take away from those kids like a Jamel Dean, who I know Derek Jew wanted to talk about, one of the highest rated rookies, if not the highest rated rookie on this Bucs class, which, by the way, another Jason Light pick. You have Sean Murphy-Bunting. You take away time from him, and you take away time from Carlton Davis. So everybody's saying, Chris Harris, and free agency. You take that time away from those young players. So do you really want to do that? I'm not all about that. I actually want to see this young group come together like they did at the last of the year. I think they're going to be that much better. The progression in the second year of a Todd Bowles system, they'll be more comfortable, and I think they'll make more plays. And I think the Bucs got something going on here in the secondary. We'll see what happens. Anything else?
Yeah, just a little bit more. You made great, solid point there.
Thank you.
And here's the part where everybody, you made a good point. And here's the other key part. So listen well, everybody. We're not a cornerback away of winning a Super Bowl. We're fine with what we had and the progressions that we've had with the rookies that we have, and you don't need to take time away from it, and that you don't need to spend another $10 million on a Chris Harris, because I know that's what he's going to ask for coming into free agency, when we need to re-sign the guys that we got here and keep developing them and keep the salary situation low by not overspending in free agency, which we've been good at that in previous, and it's failed for us. So the path that we're going on, we're drafting these young guys, keeping the salary cap low, and that aspect has been working thus far because these players are developing, and Arians have got this team that these guys are actually coming in and taking extra time out of their schedule studying to get better. That's why you see the progression of Jamel Dean so astronomically from getting your ass chewed out against Metcalf to being one of the most productive DBs out of your rookie class from starting from that period on.
Yeah, no, I'm willing to let this, as the kids would say, marinate a little bit with this secondary, let them develop that progression in the second year. I think they'll get that much better. They're more comfortable. I think this defense played better. People say level of competition. I just think it takes a little bit of time and it takes a little bit of patience. And I think there's big time expectations coming into 2020, as there should be, because there is a plethora, Leo word, of talent on this team. Blake, thanks a lot. And a big-time article coming out here about the East-West Shrine game, so definitely go check that out on Bucs Report. Like us on Facebook and also BucsReport.com, all right?
Yep, look forward to me with all that, coming out with a whole bunch of rookie draft prospects and stuff like that. We'll be going hard this season. So you guys check it out, and I'll have a lot of stuff for you as well, Peter, so you'll have that stuff ready and available for you.
All right, there you go, Mr. Blake Anthony of Blake and Blake Sports. Of course, Buck and Blake Sports, which could be heard here on Mondays and Fridays, right?
Yep.
All right, there you go. Open phone line, 813-699-5353. That is 813-699-5353. We'll go out to the web hits here. Want to read this comment from Ben Cornett. I know you're kind of trolling, but I don't really understand it. Maybe you have to call in and let me know. I believe Jameis is both are the best and worst option for the Bucs in 2020. All right, let's go out to the phone lines here. Get this guy on. Welcome to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Peter, it's Pat Usenskis. How you doing, buddy?
What's going on, Pat? How you doing?
I'm doing well tonight. How's that wrist coming along?
The wrist is the wrist. It's just we're just trying to make sure the heel and not try to lift things and stuff like that. But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. So I'm trying to keep it stable at this point, but I'm ready to rip it off. It's not a cast. It's just a splint, but most likely there's going to be a cast on there eventually when I go see the orthopedic. So I'm just trying to make the best.
Yeah, that's what happened with me. It was a splint at first, and then I went to a cast.
Yes. So what do you think about this matchup? Kansas City versus the San Francisco 49ers. Already some storylines. Can Andy Reid get the proverbial monkey off his back and win that Super Bowl that's kind of eluded him in his career? Just 15 years to the day he was down in Jacksonville. against the New England Patriots. Looked like the Eagles were going to win that game, but they didn't. Another close Super Bowl by the Patriots. Imagine that. And then you have the San Francisco 49ers, who have John Lynch and have this defense and kind of the mold of the old Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You've got to love this matchup, offense versus defense.
Oh, it's a tremendous matchup. In my eyes, it's the best Super Bowl we've seen in a long time.
Wow.
I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know that I have a favorite yet. I've got to study it a little bit more. But you're right, lots of good storylines, and I wrote the Andy Reid story last night about how here's his chance to finally, he's an excellent coach. He's got a great regular season record, but the knock on him has always been that he can't win the big games, and that's justified because he hasn't won the big games, especially the big game. And he's been to I think it's 5 or 6 championship games now, and he's only won 2 of those. So this would take everything off his back. I compared it last night to Tony Dungy. The knock on Dungy used to be, oh, great coach, but he can't win the big one. Well, he finally did, and he got it in the Hall of Fame with 1 Super Bowl win. Andy Reid's winning percentage overall is about the same as Dungy's. Dungy's is a little bit higher, but if Andy Reid wins a Super Bowl, he becomes a possible Hall of Famer. And if Andy Reid wins 1 Super Bowl, I'm willing to bet that he wins 2 or 3 because he's got Patrick Mahomes, who's 24 years old or whatever, and he's going to have him for the next decade. So that team's not going to fade away. So Andy Reid, if he can get 1 win, he could get multiple Super Bowl wins.
And speaking of Mahomes, he had a heck of a day yesterday. He's had a heck of a career, and it's only a couple years now. Do you see this young player getting a $200 million contract from the Chiefs eventually?
Yeah, as ridiculous as it sounds, he's going to. He's going to be the first. He like I said, I think he's 24 years old. He's the best in the business. Now they can now that he's completed his 3rd year, they can sign him to an extension, which if I were them, I would do it immediately. They can't do it until March, but I would do it the first day of the league year. I would sign him to an extension because every day the price tag is just going to keep going up and up and up. So you might as well get him as cheap as you can. It's not going to be cheap by any means. I don't know if this one will be the $200 million, but it could be.
Yeah, it definitely could be. We're on with Pat Yascenskis, has covered the NFL since 1993 for the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, worked at the mothership at ESPN, and now is with USA Today. He's on the evolution of sports talk television. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake. Let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. Much has been made about Jimmy Garoppolo and the passes he hasn't thrown in the postseason. In your opinion, do you think that the 49ers can score with the Chiefs and Garoppolo, put that on Garoppolo, or are they going to continue this attack with their running game? Because look, when you have a player that goes for over 200 rushing yards and you're running the ball 29 times a game and your defense is getting after it, it's pretty easy, right? But you have the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be a tougher test, right?
Absolutely. And, obviously San Francisco wants to run the ball. And they're going to try to run the ball, but the Titans tried to run the ball with Derrick Henry, and everybody was talking about how he was going to run it down Kansas City's throat. Well, they held him to what I think it was 69 yards or something like that.
69 yards.
So I'm sure there's going to be a similar kind of defensive philosophy involved in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the defensive coordinator, his name escapes me right now, but he used to be the defensive coordinator of the New York Giants, so he's definitely going to know how to call a defense, and they're going to focus on that. If they do focus on shutting down that running game, do you think Jimmy Garoppolo can win some games so that can he win this game for the 49ers with his passing?
He's going to need some help from the defense, but I think he's an adequate passer.
Right.
And I think he could win a Super Bowl. Can he win a shootout with Patrick Mahomes? I doubt it. But if he gets some help from the running game, it doesn't have to be 229 yards. But if he gets a buck and a half from the running game, and the defense plays well, then he can be good enough. But if it's a 51-48 game, the Niners aren't going to put up 48 points. But if the Chiefs are putting up 51, then there's no way he can compete with Mahomes.
Traditionally, when it's offense versus defense, defense wins. Is this the toughest defense that the Chiefs have seen all year long?
Yeah, I would say so. Overall, because I think it's a very, very balanced defense. They're good in pretty much every area. Even Quan Alexander, who I heard earlier callers talking about, and you were right. He really didn't have much of an impact. He's kind of a role player on that defense, which if he's a role player on that defense, that shows you how good that defense is, because Quan was a pretty good player here, and now he's just another guy.
Yeah, he's just another guy that can't stay healthy, and he couldn't stay healthy with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you think about Steve Young's comments of, the Bucs, they have this propensity, Leo word, of letting quarterbacks go, and those quarterbacks usually go to other places and win a Super Bowl. Young is basically saying in so many words, he feels like the Bucs should sign Jameis Winston, and there was a rumor out there that the Bucs could have a contract on the table. I don't know what you make of it. 3 years, and it could average like $23 to $26 million. Nobody really knows what's going to
Jameis'
happen.
agent is going to be looking for more than $23 million.
Right. Yeah, that's what I think too. So, I mean, to me, the whole, what do you think of Young's comments? Do you think he's right on the money with that, saying the Bucs should bring back Jameis Winston? In your opinion, is Winston the best option in what you have in free agency?
Okay. Well, first of all, Winston is why I called in tonight, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Sure.
Because I've got some background and insight that I think people should know.
Okay.
But as far as my opinion on Winston, I'm torn. Like, seems like the fan base is torn about 50-50.
Right.
I don't know what the right call is on him. I think maybe they franchise or transition him and bring him back for one more year and see if another year with Bruce Arians, if that can really develop him and correct his mistakes. As far as the long-term contract, I'd be hesitant. And as far as Steve Young, who I respect very, very highly, I think his comments might have been a little bit self-serving because he was one of those guys that was here and went on and won a Super Bowl elsewhere, just like Doug Williams and Trent Dilfer. But Steve Young, let's face the facts. If he had stayed his entire career in Tampa, he wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. He wouldn't be on ESPN every day. He would have been just another guy because he was on some very, very bad teams.
Yeah, and that's
so
my point.
You got to take that with a grain of salt.
Right.
Now, Doug Williams did go on, win a Super Bowl, did some good things. Trent Dilfer, he won a Super Bowl, but did he really? I think it was the Baltimore defense that won that Super Bowl. And here's another, and I've been guilty of writing this myself, and I just discovered it the other day. A lot of people are reporting or have reported that the Bucs have never signed a quarterback that they drafted to a second contract. That's actually not true. it's true that they've never signed a first round quarterback to a second round to a second contract, but they did in fact re-sign Chris Sims to a second contract after he got hurt, and I think that was just to protect themselves legally. And he never really played on that contract anyway. But just to point out a small fact, they did sign Chris Sims to a second contract. Okay. Now here's why I called. Several of your callers keep calling Jameis Winston Jason Light's pick. Well, ultimately he is, because Jason Light is the general manager. But you got to know the history at the time. I think Jameis Winston was more of a Lovie Smith pick than a Jason Light pick. And the reason I say that is because at the combine that year, myself, Rick Stroud, and Roy Cummings went to meet privately with Lovie in his hotel room in Indianapolis. And, it was just the beginning of the combine. The draft was still shaping up, and Lovie pretty much came right out and said, we're going to draft Jameis Winston. And I mean, he didn't definitively say it, but he hinted very strongly at it.
Right.
And said that they'd done all the research already and they checked all the boxes, and he was all gung-ho about it. It was probably the most upbeat and excited I've ever seen Lovie. He was a low-key, mellow guy. So anyway, after we talked to him, we went and talked to Jason Light and told him what Lovie said. And Jason, you could tell, was kind of taken aback. Not that he didn't agree with Lovie. I'm sure they were in step. But I think that Jason didn't want it out there that quickly, that's what they were going to do. And also, tip their hand and let everybody else in the draft know that's what they were going to do. I think he wanted to keep them guessing and also keep the possibility open of somebody wanting to trade up. But at that time, the power structure, it was never fully revealed, but the implication was that Lovie had final say on personnel and not Jason Light at that time. Jason Light has it now. But at that time, I think Lovie actually was making the call.
And we're on with Pat Yacinskis, who's covered the NFL since 1993 for the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, also worked for ESPN, now works for USA Today on the sports web. Let's talk about number one overall picks. And we kind of mentioned this last week on the sports web, and I feel like we deserve some credit. Yours truly deserves some credit. There was a report out there that it was widely known or widely speculated that the Carolina Panthers would like to trade up to the number one pick for Joe Burrow. Of course, Adam Schefter has come out and said the Bengals basically have set their sights on Burrow as the number one pick. Can you fathom any way that the Carolina Panthers could get up there to number one to get Joe Burrow, or are the Bengals just going to take him and just call it a day?
I think anything is possible when it comes to the draft. It would take a lot to get up to number one. But the Panthers, if they're that much in love with Joe Burrow, and they probably should be, I could see that happening. But Marty Herney, their general manager, is also a very good, smart man, and he's not going to give up the farm to get Joe Burrow. But that said, Carolina is headed into a full rebuild after losing Luke Kuechly. And really they've got Christian McCaffrey on offense, and that's about it. So they do need to make some drastic moves. But they're going to have to give up a bunch of draft picks to do that if they're going to get Joe Burrow. So I kind of see it as a long shot that they would give up that many draft picks when they're in need of using those draft picks and paying them right away.
Let's go back to Jason Light. If Jameis Winston goes by the wayside, if they decide to move on from Winston, do you think Jason Light is on the hot seat?
Not as long as Bruce Arians is here. I think they're a team, and I think that Bruce Arians, if the Glazers tried to fire Jason Light, Bruce Arians would probably quit. So I think that as long as Bruce Arians is here, Jason Light's not going anywhere.
With this report coming out from Jason La Canfora of CBS Sports, how much credence do you put into it with Phillip Rivers and possibly the Bucs being interested in Rivers, even at 38 years old? He just moved to Florida, the Panhandle. Could you see the Bucs once again moving on from Winston, going with the Phillip Rivers, and then drafting a quarterback in the second or third round, maybe even the first round at this point? Could you see that happening?
No, not Phillip Rivers.
Okay.
I mean, I saw a fair amount of him this year, and he looked like he's 2 or 3 years past his limit. He really did not look good. He has no mobility left. His arm strength is not what it was, not even close to what it was. And just because he moved to Florida, I wouldn't read too much into that. Especially the Panhandle. That's he could get on a plane and fly back and forth to San Diego as fast as he could drive from the Panhandle down to Tampa. Jacksonville might be a closer drive for him. So I don't see it at all. I think Phillip Rivers, quite frankly, is going to just retire. And like a lot of people do when they retire, they move to Florida.
Yeah, and that's it. And you know what? He could also fly to Carolina because they're looking for a quarterback. And like you said, they're rebuilding. So would that be a situation you would monitor? But you never know. Maybe Rivers just decides to retire, although he's got like 900 kids at this point. So he's definitely going to have to continue working, especially with all those kids. He's going to have to definitely do that. So, and speaking of hard work, Pat Yastrzemski here on the Sports Web. Thanks a lot for joining me. Anytime you want to come on, let me know. All right.
Absolutely. I had to do it tonight because I wanted to clear up the Lovie Smith thing on Jameis.
I love those little inside stories. So make sure you keep those coming here on the Sports Web. All right, Pat?
You got it, my friend. Take care.
All right, there you go. Pat Yastrzemski has covered the NFL since 1993 for the Carolina Panthers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers worked at the mothership called ESPN, which if you're a sports broadcaster, you strive to work for, right? He's done it, and also works for USA Today, giving you a little inside information on the Jameis Winston situation. So it was not a Jason Light pick. It was a Lovie Smith pick. So, and he even cleared it up that if Jason Light were on the hot seat and were fired, that you would lose Bruce Arians. So what do you think? What do you think about the Super Bowl matchup? What do you think about the Jameis Winston rumors? And we didn't get a chance to go into that, kind of went into it with Pat. But according to Jason La Canfora of CBS Sports, 8-time Pro Bowler, the Buccaneers, according to a lot of people, there's a buzz about Tampa as a possible landing spot for Phillip Rivers. All right. Let's go out to the phone lines. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Pete, it's Ben, Las Vegas.
Hey, what's going on, Ben? All right, now explain yourself to me, the best and the worst possible situation for the Bucs. I don't get it. Enlighten me.
No, the best and worst option for correct. You're right. What I mean by that is, right now, as far as best option, Jameis is the best option because there's nobody. I don't see another quarterback coming here to do any better than Jameis at this point, at least next year. And the worst option is, like we talk about all the time, the turnovers. And having a coach like Arians, who the majority of his offense relies on passing more than the run game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Jameis is more prone when he's, like we talked about, we've gone back and forth, like throwing the ball more. We don't want to see him throw the ball, 40 times a game.
Sure.
So, you're right there. Arians is kind of exposing a weakness with Jameis. Does that make sense?
No, it makes lots of sense, but the weakness has always been there. It's just the fact of, and looking more into this offense where you have wide receivers that have option routes, once again, those receivers are not always on the same page with Winston. Is that fair? So once again,
Yeah.
I think you're somewhat right in the way of now those receivers, now you're going to have that chemistry with Winston to pick up some of those intricacies, Leo word, of what that offense is going to be all about in 2020, which you didn't have in 2019. And I always go back to this, quarterbacks throw a high number of interceptions in their first year in Arians' offense. So I'm willing to sit here and say that that's not going to be Jameis Winston in 2020. But, once again, you got an offensive line problem. You got to fix it. We talked about it. You've got a running back problem, possibly. I think it can be fixed with David Johnson. And the reason why is the Cardinals most likely are going to cut ties with him. He's had 2 injury-riddled seasons. He doesn't really work in that offense anymore. He's going to cost them $11 million. I could absolutely foresee them going out and getting him on a deal because Johnson is familiar with Arians' offense. Johnson has been the most productive in Arians' offense. I could see that happening. I could see that marriage working in free agency. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely can see it. A lot of coaches like familiarity, and that's what he had with David Johnson in Arizona. But again, it comes back to what I said earlier. With Arians, the type of coach he is, he's a passing type of coach. Now, is he going to use David Johnson more than he did like a Barber or a Rojo? I don't know.
Well, you have more confidence. It seems like you have more confidence. Johnson is the guy that can pass protect. He's been a 3-down back. He's been the most productive. He had over 2,000 all-purpose yards in his offense. So to me, it makes lots of sense instead of, a lot of people looking at it, and I get it. Leo wants a Jonathan Taylor. Johnny Dean wants another running back or to go with what you have. I don't know what Johnny Dean wants to go with, but most likely doesn't want to necessarily just go with the running back. For me, if you go and draft a running back, he's got to be able to do all those 3 facets, which we talk about, which is run with vision and patience, take care of the ball, and also be able to catch and pass protect. For me, it makes sense for them to go after a veteran instead of going out in the draft and getting one. That's what I think. Maybe people say Kareem Hunt. Yeah. It's a possibility. Why not?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't like the off the field stuff, of course. I'm not a big fan of that, but he was not a nuisance with the Cleveland Browns. If he's still productive, he can work in this offense. He can do all those things that are working Arians' offense. Why not? Go and get him, I guess.
Well, one thing for sure, Peter, is you can't rely on Barber. I'm sorry.
No.
He's not good enough. Rojo, I'd keep around another year, but I think Rojo is what he is. He's a better version. I hate to say it, but he's a better version of Charles Sims. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a good runner, a better runner than Sims, and a good pass runner like Sims. But again, he doesn't block. He's not good in pass protection. So that's why you said you need a guy like David Johnson or, a Duke Johnson. Oh, I'm sorry, not a Duke. What's his name? I keep thinking
David Johnson.
Hunt. Kareem.
Yes.
Oh, David Johnson and a Kareem Hunt.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you need a better pass blocking running back is what I mean. And I don't see that many of those in the draft. A lot of people are saying guys like Cam Akers. Well, I think he's good for a second or third round, but again, at Florida, we're both Florida State fans. He doesn't pass block very well either. So you need guys that can pass block.
Right. That would be a problem. That would be a problem. But he's been productive with bad offensive line. But that would be the one thing you're looking at with any running back that you're going to draft, whether it's a Taylor, it's an Akers, it's an Anthony McFarland. Any running back at this point that you're going to go and draft, you definitely have to look at them and say, how do they match up? Can they pass protect? Can they do those things? And, that's why John Gruden at the time didn't draft the Steven Jackson, because he didn't feel like he was good enough in pass protection. Of course, that came back to bite him, where. But that's a big time staple of a lot of people's offenses, including Arians. Anything else?
Yeah, I want to say a couple things. The one about, with Pat, with all due respect to him, he's been a reporter. That was the Glazers' decision, not Lovey's. Lovey, he said that, I'm sure he said that to Pat and those guys because they already knew what the Glazers were thinking. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Well,
And then,
I
somebody-
think
well-
I definitely would take Pat's word on it, because Lovey at the time had final say, and when they hired Smith, that was the caveat. He had final say on all the roster decisions. So I definitely think it was a Lovey Smith pick. And what they got afraid of is when they went 6-10 the first year, and they felt like Dirk Cutter could have left, that they were going to lose that continuity with Jameis Winston. And of course, it didn't necessarily work out. First year they were 9-7, but they got rid of Lovie
I'm not
Smith.
disputing that.
Right.
He did, but he does have final say. I'm just saying, I think ultimately this was a Glazer decision, even right after the season was over. You got to think about it, Peter. Attendance issues. That's another thing. They have to get the attendance up.
Right.
Well, Jameis, a lot of Florida State fans in the Tampa area. So there's a lot of factors that play more than just him being the top quarterback that year. There's other factors that go into these kind of decisions. Ultimately, the Glazers, the ownership will say nay or yay on final decision, even if Lovey has the final word.
Yeah, I still think it was a Lovey decision. Lovey went to them, and then they felt comfortable with it. So, I mean, of course, it always comes down to the owner. But I do think what he was talking about is it wasn't a Jason Light pick; it was a Lovey Smith pick, and it was a.
No,
Lovie
I agree
Smith
with
pick
that.
Because,
I agree with that. Yeah.
because they hired Lovie Smith first, and then they hired Jason Light, which to me is ass
That's true.
backwards. You've got to hire a general manager first. Unless you're not going to hire a general manager, you're just going to go with the coach, and then you're going to have the coach or somebody else deal with the general manager responsibilities. But I always love Pat, because Pat always gives you those inside nuggets. And he was talking about how he was in the room with Lovie Smith. I'll take him for his word at it. And I definitely think it was a Lovie Smith decision. And I'll tell you right now, when I was at the Connecticut School of Broadcasting doing a show called The Sports Mayhem, and they hired Dirk Cutter, I said right there, Jameis Winston is going to be the first round quarterback, because Marcus Mariota does not fit that system. He's not, people saying, well, what about Marcus Mariota being in the Bruce Arians system? No, he can't throw deep. He's a gimmick quarterback. He's never going to work. He didn't work in Tennessee. He's not going to work now. Stop it. Go ahead.
No, I know. Yeah, I actually, Peter, I'm amazed he's made it this far, Mariota. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
I really am.
Yeah.
He turned out better than I thought he actually would. He had a better situation than Jameis. I thought Mariota would be a bust just because of the style of quarterback he is.
Sure.
He never, stood behind center. He always was in shotgun in college at Oregon. That's the spread offense.
Well, they did
So
that. They
I
did
will give him credit. Yeah.
the RPO stuff and all that. You can't run that offense every down. You just can't do it. I know that the
Right.
Ravens do it with Lamar Jackson, and it's a specialty. But then again, you see how if you shut it down, how it's not effective. You have to definitely be able to throw from the pocket, and that's what Mariota wasn't able to do. And then on top of it,
Right.
he was given everything that you would hope Winston would be given, which is an
Correct.
offensive line
That's
and a
correct.
running game. Can you imagine if Jameis Winston had the Titans' offensive line and the running game, which Mariota had, and he still failed? So,
Oh, absolutely. And with Lamar Jackson, the difference is he's actually gotten better as a passer.
pocket passer,
So
yeah,
they've worked on that
sure.
with them. Yeah, which I didn't think they could, but he actually did. He got better at that, where Mariota, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. And Mariota's going to be looking for a job. He was saying today he believes he'll be a starter in the league. I don't know about that. We'll see.
No. Career
see.
backup.
Yeah,
He's a career backup.
definitely.
More than the Glennon. He'll be competing with Glennon for a second string somewhere.
The whole debate was in 2015, Mariota or Winston. People were saying take Mariota. I was saying take Winston, and there's still people out there that still have a love affair with Mariota. I don't understand it. Don't get it. And people,
Yeah, I mean, and one more thing, I just want
Yes.
to say real quick.
Yes.
Somebody mentioned about a 5-year, $140 million deal for Jameis. They don't understand that he's not going to get paid $28 million a year every year for those 5 years.
no,
The contract's going to be front loaded,
correct.
which means that next year would be about 35 to 38 million. He'll get something like 80, 90 million guaranteed.
Sure.
I just don't think you can give him a contract like that right now with the interceptions he's had, despite, whether all of them were his fault or not.
Yeah.
You can't really do that not that kind of contract.
It'll
my
be,
opinion.
it'll be definitely interesting to see. We'll be talking about it. Thanks a lot, Ben Cornett. You're not the biggest troll in the room. Corey Brown is tonight. Corey is on a different wavelength than you, my friend. But thanks a lot for calling the Sports Web. All right, boss?
All right, Pete, take care, man.
All right, there you go. Ben Cornett, 813-699-5353 from Las Vegas. People calling from Las Vegas, people calling from Tampa, people calling all around. People saying, I don't have a local voice. I don't have a national voice. You do. It's right here. It's every night. I don't know if it's a radio show. I don't know if it's a TV show. But what I do know is that it's the evolution of sports talk television. All right, let's go out to the phone lines. I know this guy, Mr. Johnny Dean from Pittsburgh. Welcome to the Sports Web. How you doing?
This ain't Johnny Dean.
My bad. I'm sorry about that. Who is this?
It's Matt, Oklahoma.
Oh, it's Matt from Oklahoma. I'm sorry. You fooled me with the number. Matt from Oklahoma City. Thanks a lot for calling the Sports Web. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to let you know that you don't have to turn on the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are going to win by halftime. You might as well save your money on your beer and just listen to it on the radio or something. They're going to smoke the 49ers.
They're going to smoke the – wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Now, you don't get off like that. You don't come on the show and say, well, you don't have to turn on the Super Bowl because the Chiefs are going to smoke the 49ers. Why? Because of their offense? Don't you think the 49ers, they haven't seen a defense like this year?
Now, defense is going to slow them down a little bit. They may not score 35 points, but I just don't think you've got enough players on the defense of the 49ers to stop the number of speed players that they have in Kansas City. Everybody from the water boy on up can do 4.3. It's just crazy how much track speed they've got on that team.
Yeah.
And they lost the running back for personal issues that was just as fast as the wide receiver. I don't know where Andy Reid sat around and gathered all these guys up. Nobody paid attention, but it is something to see. When they pull off, was it 24, 27 points in a quarter?
Yeah.
Week before last.
Amazing.
I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't believe that. I watched the game where the Buffalo Bills and the Oilers played, and the game flipped over at halftime. I remember that weekend. And this thing with Kansas City, as soon as they got one touchdown, it was like, oh my God, the gates just opened.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody can stop that. You may slow it down, but you're not going to be able to cut it down altogether because they've got too many options. It's just crazy.
Well,
So,
I think the interesting matchup.
Going to get a ring, I think.
The interesting matchup, I think, is going to be the 49ers defensive line versus the offensive line of the Chiefs, and not letting Mahomes get out of the pocket, because you saw him yesterday when he gets out of the pocket. He's seen it all year long. When he gets out of the pocket, he has that ability to find open receivers, and that's where the 49ers have to show that discipline. If they get after him, they got to hit him. They got to hit him hard. They got to put him on the ground, because if they lose containment and Mahomes gets out of the pocket, he can make things happen, namely to Tyreek Hill. And I wonder if Richard Sherman is going to be on Hill. That will be a hell of a matchup to watch, right?
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting for part of the game. I just don't think that they're going to be able to. I don't see how they do it unless they're going to eat the clock up with the running back on 49ers side.
Well, I think Robert Saleh
got all the way up to.
I think Robert Saleh, who's the defensive coordinator, will have some interesting things. They may spy him up. Of course, when you spy a quarterback up, there's always somebody open, right? You leave man to man.
Right.
So that's where the matchup lies at this point.
And then you'll know by the end of the first
Sure.
quarter if it's worth watching or not.
Yeah. Well, I know you're happy.
Know.
I know you're happy with the Kansas City Chiefs, or you're thinking the Chiefs are going to, win this game, but I think it's going to be a close Super Bowl. And I think it always comes down to offense versus defense. And when it's offense versus defense, usually the defense wins, but you're exactly right. This Chiefs offense with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and the other receiving weapons that they have. And then of course you forget about the tight end, who's Kelsey, who basically is the security blanket and has become one of the best tight ends. Of course, on the other side, you have Greg Kittle. So there's a lot of interesting storylines here. Andy Reid getting the monkey off his back, finally winning a Super Bowl. You have the 49ers doing what they're doing right now with...
You know what's great, though, Peter?
Yeah.
This year, the last 4 games were teams that don't show up every year. And it was players that are new and refreshing and invigorating. It's not Tom Brady versus, I don't know, Joe Flacco.
Mhm.
Somebody that's been there 100 times, and get tired of watching it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The Kansas City Chiefs haven't had a breath of fresh air up there in 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they're due. And San Francisco, I remember when Jerry Rice was actually wearing a uniform, not wearing a tux, running up and down the damn field. And that was a long time ago. I had a lot of hair back then.
Sure.
So it's been a while.
We
And-
all did.
and
My hair
I
wasn't
think-
gray back then. I remember those days of Jerry Rice and John Taylor. Who could forget those Super Bowls? I mean, they were just dominating, whether it was Steve Young, who did it once, or it was Joe Montana, who, to me, in my opinion, is still the greatest quarterback of all time, because under pressure, he was Joe Cool. And I just remember that final drive against the Cincinnati Bengals in Miami, where he just – you just know you gave him too much time. He's going to go down and he's going to score that touchdown, because it was just a precision offense. And Montana was a surgeon at that time. And then you talk about Steve Young, being put in the same situation, having the greatest receiver on Jerry Rice. And it's not like the 49ers Super Bowls were very close. They weren't. I mean, they were blowouts. And I believe at that time, the 49ers were number one offense. Denver was a number one defense, and they beat them. Beat the Denver Broncos, I believe. I'm not sure if that's correct, and that was a blowout. So the 49ers are going for 6. They're trying to match the Patriots and the Steelers at this point. It's a tough matchup versus the Chiefs, because they have a very good offense. My thing is, do they have a good enough defense to shut down that running game? And if they do ask Garoppolo to pass, can they shut down some of the weapons that the 49ers have? Because they have some weapons on that team. They do. Deebo Samuel, Emmanuel Sanders, and of course we talked about Kittle. So
right, and Garoppolo, don't let the press fool you. He can pass.
Oh, I know
the
he
guy
can
knows
pass.
how to throw the ball.
He's
He just hasn't
unbelievable.
had to.
He's unbelievable. Right. Both of the guys.
The running back go at 260 some odd yards the
Sure.
other day. That's
Sure.
You don't need a quarterback. You could have put the trainer out there just calling the hikes.
Yeah.
And on the other thing about, you were talking about free agencies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Sue's coming back.
Okay.
And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I
No.
just think his mindset right now at this point in his career is, pay me and I'll show up for a while and I'll take the check and go. And I think when he came in last year, I had the same feeling about it. He outperformed a lot better than I thought he was going to. But I just don't think if Jason Light has to pick to lose one, that's the one you're going to let walk, because he's going to want too much money.
And then again, you may go, look, if the Bucs go in a different situation, and I don't think they go this way, but if they do, let's say they let Winston walk and they just re-sign their whole defensive line. They sign Shaq, they sign JPP, they sign Sue, and they sign Nassib, and they decide to go with the Phillip Rivers, which Pat doesn't think they're going to. Pat Yasenskas doesn't think they would go in that direction. But let's say they did. That's also a situation. But what Blake Anthony was saying is that, it kind of looks like Sue may be retiring. I mean, that's what he kind of hinted at on Instagram. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. But he definitely, I definitely think he outperformed Gerald McCoy. Let's put that out there, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
He smoked McCoy.
Okay.
What's he in his 12th year or something like that?
Yeah.
As Sue is. So, yeah, he's due to retire. I think that's not out of the question.
Sure.
I don't think you want to do Phillip Rivers. I just don't think so. I love watching the guy. The guy's got moxie. He wants to win. He's got an attitude that's infectious.
Right.
But I just don't think at this point in his career that he's going to be a benefit. I think that would be kind of the reverse Unitas thing, where he leaves San Diego and comes back east and finds out he's old and his knees are gone, like Namath or whatever.
Right.
And he doesn't perform anywhere close to what he was doing 5 years ago. That's to be expected. I just don't see him as a starter. I could be wrong. You could bring him in and draft a 3rd round quarterback that you got a flyer on,
develop,
and
right?
let him develop.
Do you see that? I mean, do you see Bruce Arians hanging out for another 2 to 3 years here and developing a quarterback, or Byron Leftwich taking the reins from him and developing? I don't know if I see that. I don't know if it's. I guess it's possible. Anything's possible at this point, because we don't know. We don't know what they're going to do right now. It's just speculation season, and it's fun here on the Sports Web. Anything else, Matt?
I'll just say this. The one thing I do know is that there are more not first-round quarterbacks playing in starter positions right now
than there are number one picks that are actually in the contention of championships. Think about that. Garoppolo was a middle round pick, and Mahomes was a 10th one picked in the whole draft.
Yeah,
So
but Mahomes could have been
when you look
a top 5 pick with the talent he has. But it's here and
he
there.
could have, but he wasn't.
Right.
So they got him on the cheap, and they got him for 5 years on a
let's test this
third
theory
round
out
pick.
here, Matt. You've got Tannehill, who was a number 1 pick. You've got Lamar Jackson, who was a number 1 pick. You've got we already talked about Garoppolo. You got Aaron Rodgers, who was a number 1 pick, most likely should have been a top 5, top 10 pick. Who else?
Rodgers wasn't a number 1 pick. He got passed over by the Niners and got pushed all the way down to Green Bay.
And how smart was that? Aaron Rodgers definitely first round pick. He was 22 overall. He should have been higher than what he was. So, all right, Matt. Thanks a lot for the call. Appreciate you. I know I'm right. Welcome to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where you calling from? Oh, this is Keith. Keith from Bucks Report. Mr. Keith Larson here live on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television, just talking about first-round quarterbacks and how they weren't.
Whoa. Yeah, I heard that. Let me chime in on that one real quick. That's because quarterbacks that are picked number 1 overall or even in the top 10 are typically going to franchises that aren't in a good position.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how that works. That's the whole purpose of that.
Right.
With that said, great show tonight. Great take by Pat Yusinkus.
Yeah, he's awesome, isn't he?
Well, I mean, the legend.
Yeah.
The legend that is Pat Yusinkus. Great time at the East-West Shrine game. Peter's got plenty to talk about with that. Blake's got the article dropping about it in the morning. 5 guys that stood out. Besides that, what's going on the rest of the night, Peter?
Well, we're going to try to probably close this out and get everybody's comments here and take some more calls on the Rivers situation. And also, if they want to talk about the Super Bowl matchup or they want to go back to the championship games or they want to talk about anything they want to talk about, they have the opportunity here because this is their fan platform. This is the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Join the 64,000 following we have here on Bucks Report. So it's up to them. I mean, I'll go as long as they want me to. And if they don't, then I'll just get off and we'll carry this on tomorrow night at 10 o'clock with the legend himself, Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck. How about that?
Hey, you heard that, everybody. Call in and let's make the Peter go a little longer.
Jeez, I knew you were going to go that way, and you always got your head in the gutter, but that's why I love you here, Keith Larson of Bucks Report. Thanks a lot for calling in, all right?
Merry New Year.
Merry New Year. There you go. 813-699-53. Whoa, what was that from? What did I do there? Hold on a sec here. Well, I just want to hide that. All right, there you go. Well, I actually got some comments. I can actually do this kind of like, I'll tell you what, let's go out to some of these webhead comments. You're going to have to be patient with me or just go out and take some calls. Welcome to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Johnny from Pittsburgh.
Johnny, where you been? Johnny Dean, the professor. How you doing, bud?
I've been trying to call in all night, man, but you've been a busy man tonight,
I've
Peter.
been a busy man tonight. It hasn't been just all Winston. It's been all around a cornucopia, Leo word, of subjects in the sports world involving Super Bowl 54 and the Jameis Winston conversation with Steve Young and Phillip Rivers rumors. What's on your mind?
Well, let's see where I start. I guess I'll start with your comment about you didn't know where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
You should know where I'm at. Offensive line.
Oh, of course. Offensive line, Tristan Wirfs.
There's no question. The running back issue, I don't see being taken care of until the 3rd or 4th round.
I don't think they go.
One name for you as far as running backs goes,
Okay.
Mozart. Know that name? Do you know that name? Mozart.
I don't.
He just ran for 220 yards in a fucking championship game, dude.
Yeah.
Nobody knew his name before.
Nope, they didn't. You're exactly right. Nobody knew Devin Singletary from your little college. I think it's FIU or FAU. I think it's FIU, who the quarterback we just interviewed the other day from the East-West Shrine game, James Morgan. He was.
Which I did see that.
Right.
I saw that interview.
Right. It was an unknown. He was an unknown running back who has been very good for the Buffalo Bills, and he's learning under one of the best running backs of all time, and Frank Gore, longevity-wise. So you just don't know. That's why I believe they go in the free agency market. I think you've done the draft already. You've already drafted running backs. You need to go with somebody that is going to know your offense, and that's why I say David Johnson. And I'll make this prediction right now. I think David Johnson is going to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Let's put it out there.
I can see that. I'm not going to even argue with you about that. No. I'd like to argue, but no, you don't give me no room to argue there.
I mean, $11 million, you would believe that the Cardinals will be moving on from that. He's familiar with Coach Arians' offense. Coach Arians is definitely comfortable with him. Johnson has seen his best days in that offense. I definitely see a marriage made in heaven. Go ahead.
Now to what Pat Ycinka said and Ben Cornett.
Sure.
Okay, Ben Cornett was not wrong in that the owners did come out. The lady, I can't remember her name, man, Glazer, she did come out before the draft and publicly said that Winston was her guy. Winston's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can see where Ben Cornett, I kind of feel that the
You're
Glazer
mentioning
saw
Darcy
Winston said
Glazer?
a few years. Huh?
You're mentioning the Glazers' daughter there?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't remember her name.
Darcy.
Man.
I think it's Darcy.
The one that came in this year when Arians was there and just basically took over Paul.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
What was the other thing?
Phillip Rivers?
So many things to touch on. Phillip Rivers, all right, look, this doesn't just concern Phillip Rivers. This concerns anybody. If the Glazers go out there, if Arians goes out there or Light goes out there and brings a Phillip Rivers in or somebody else, then you can look to the 2020 draft or 2021 draft of seeing us moving up for a top draft pick for a quarterback, because that's the only move that would make sense. And that's stupid in my opinion.
Well, you could see them getting Phillip Rivers and then going in the second or third round. Pat didn't seem to think that would happen, but that's a situation. A lot of people saying, Jacob Eason out of Washington. He seems like a popular player. That's the player a lot of people kind of circle.
Well, you know what they say about popular players? They don't never stay at the draft position they're in right now during draft day. They always move up.
Correct. Exactly. You just don't know. Right now, he could be viewed as a second or third round player. He has a fantastic combine. He goes on the whiteboard. He impresses those coaches. All you have to do is have those draft pundits say, he could be the next Peyton Manning. He's as good as Peyton Manning on the whiteboard. Right. And basically that buzz, it goes up, and he's a number one player, a number one first round player instead of a second or third. So you just don't know.
Now, as far as that goes, if they did go like a third round draft pick to replace Winston, if Winston walks or they don't sign him or something, if they do that, and they're not trading up, they're not throwing the farm to trade up this year. They need too many pieces. But if they fill those pieces this year, I could see them throwing the farm at the number one pick next year or the number two pick next year, depending on where whatever quarterback it is falls at that time. So, yeah, I could see a filler spot this year in the draft for a third or fourth round quarterback, see how he works, and then get their franchise guys in the next season. That's what I think might happen with Burrows this year. I think somebody with Burrows, come on, man, somebody out there is going to throw the farm at the Bengals to get that pick.
And I think it could be the Carolina Panthers. I definitely think
don't see the Panthers in a rebuild situation doing that, because you're rebuilding. I'm talking this would be a situation where a team feels that they're pretty secure, Titans, in their team, and wants to improve it by getting that franchise guy. I could see the Titans doing it, not the Panthers. The Titans have a team built.
Right.
They need a couple of receivers and a quarterback.
Okay. It's going to be fun because I love speculation season. And this is why I'm in the business that I'm in here on the Sports Web on Bugs Report, because we can speculate all night long. And until it happens, we can do it. And it's good fun. And nobody gets upset. Nobody gets into their feelings, because everybody on this show can have an opinion. I'm not going to call you a dumbass unless you kind of piss me off. And I'm not really pissed off tonight. So I never call you a dumbass, because you're Johnny Dean, the professor, the voice of reason. Anything else, buddy?
I was talking about secondary earlier, but
Yes.
I don't really want to get into that.
I mean,
Everybody seems to think our secondary is garbage, but it finished actually in the top 10.
The secondary is not garbage. The secondary was one of the most exciting things, I think, coming into 2020, besides that defensive line and seeing what they do, possibly in free agency.
I did have one more thing to say.
Sure,
Yeah,
go
about
ahead.
defense, actually.
Yes.
With Sue.
Yes.
With Sue. It does seem like Sue might be retiring. And even if Sue isn't retiring, you know that the staff there has to be thinking about replacing him because he will be retiring soon.
You also have to replace Bo Allen, too. I mean, he's a free agent.
Absolutely.
People forget him. So that will be a situation where you'll see how they address that in free agency. And if they lose both of those players.
I really don't think they don't want to add any more free agents to that line. It's already filled with free agents. I think they're going to draft. They're going to have to draft and groom. See, for the cap space in the future.
Sure.
Not this year or next year, but for future cap space, they have to fill those holes with draftees.
Well, do you think a Ken Law or Derek Brown would be on their list at 14? Are you
Strangely
okay with
enough,
that?
I wrote an article about Ken Law already.
Okay. And what was the article? I
And,
didn't get a chance to see it. What did you say about Ken Law? What do you like about Ken Law? What do you think he brings to this Bucs
I
defense?
think Ken Law might be a pick. Well, when I wrote the article, it was like the beginning of the season. So Ken Law was popular, but not. He was like second or third round at the time. So now that he's moving up the board, I don't know. I think we go offensive line first.
Well, I hope
because a lot of money is being spent on our offensive line right now, and we need to trim that fat.
I could definitely see them moving up for a player. I don't know if it's going to be an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, but I could definitely see it with all the money they have going all in this year because the Super Bowl is in their own backyard. I think they could definitely see an all-in year. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because you've always wanted to see them not only go into free agency, but be aggressive in free agency, sign your own players, but also add to that. And then in the draft, we always talk about them trading down and getting more picks. I think you have enough talent here. You've got to add
That's what you do. That's what you do when you're building.
Right.
When you're building a team, you really need, and that was what disgusted me for the last 3 or 4 years, that we didn't move back enough to gather those picks. But now we're not building no more. We're loading up.
Thank you.
And now was when we take what we need.
Agree. Absolutely agree. Good stuff, Johnny Dean. Anything else, buddy?
No, that's about it, dude.
All right, man. Johnny Dean, the professor there for Pennsylvania. Thanks a lot for calling the evolution of sports talk television. All right. There you go. He's gone. I want to read some of these comments, and we got him here. Let's do something here. Let's see here. We can't have 35 turnovers from one man and expect to be successful. I agree with you on that. But with that being said, also, it's not all on just one player. And somebody mentioned this. We'll get to that comment about how Pewter Report and Trevor Sikkema broke it down. Half of those interceptions are not on one man. They're actually on the wide receivers. I'm not saying he's not without fault. He is. Jameis Winston definitely has to work on it, but he hasn't been helped out by, once again, his offensive line and also his wide receivers. And, reading this article and learning more, in a Bruce Arians offense, receivers have the options to go off of it. So could there have been some communication troubles? Could there have been some non-chemistry or some chemistry issues there? Absolutely. All right, let's go on to the next comment here. OJ Howard is more typical than prototypical Eric Ebron ASJ. Agree with that. Good stuff. Tristan, thanks a lot. Ari says, whomever his first read is, that's why Perryman started producing when Evans and Godwin went out. It's a fair point, but once again, you can't take it away from him, Ari, because at the first of the year, Marine Corps statement, he looked lost in the sauce. When those guys went out, he got more comfortable in the offense. It seemed like he kind of turned it on. We'll see. Johnny thinks that he's going to price himself out, may go somewhere else. I think he may stay for a little bit less money than we get out there in free agency because he has this chemistry with Winston and this offense going forward. Let's see here what Derek says. OJ needs to be traded in the offseason, taking reps and catches away from Cameron Brate, who you paid money to. Also have 2 of the top 5 wide receivers in the league. Do not need to spread the ball around that much. Okay, good stuff, Derek. Let's go out to Greg here. Glad to see you back on. Hope the hand is doing well. Keep on telling it like it is or how it is. And Look, it goes back to kind of like my idol. That was Howard Cosell. He told it like it was. I'm a Steve Dumick fan. God bless him. And also, my dad always told me, look, when you get on this sports talk show, you tell it like it is. You put out facts and stats. You put some opinion out there. You present your opinion, and then you let everybody else do their thing. And I think we do it every night here on Bucks Report. We call it the Sports Web. So thanks a lot, Greg. Appreciate it. The wrist will get better. It's just a slow process. William Romer, wow, I'm all for keeping Jameis another year, but whatever you lace smoke with, put it out there ASAP. That would be the contract. That's how he feels, Ben. I get it. That's how he feels. I'm going to read these comments from you webheads. We'll take some more phone calls, and we'll just end it for the night if we don't get any more. I like McKinney from Alabama at the safety spot. Got to do some more research, but Sweet Castro, thanks a lot for tuning in. A new viewer here on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television. Try to get all your comments in here. William, why can't our identity be in the passing game? You can win either way. You don't have to have a running game. You just have to be great one way or the other. But the problem is when you're asking a quarterback to throw 41 times a game and not have balance, the defense basically is not caught off guard. They know what's coming. Even Kansas City has a running game to them, right? They have some running game. The successful teams in the NFL this year, top 4 passing teams were not in the playoffs. Top 4 rushing teams were. Kansas City is interesting because they have Mahomes and they have this offense. We're going to see how it works versus the 49ers. We're going to see what a balanced attack leads to against a team that is solely on passing, but still they run the ball being Kansas City. What's Tristan say? And stop with the top wide receiver and core. There are several teams with more talent at the position. Well, look, when you have 2 of the top wide receivers in the NFL and Godwin and Evans, you definitely make a big deal about it. William Romer, you have to be balanced from your offense to be successful in the NFL. Good stuff by Ben. I'm going to try this out here. Let's see. Mr. Castro says you can't run the ball when you're spotting teams 10 to 14 points. Agree, but is that always the case, Castro, with Winston in this offense, or is it the fact the defense didn't play well either, right? Let's be fair about this. I'm not saying he hasn't thrown pick sixes. He has, but it's not always on one player. It's also on your defense getting better, and they did throughout the season. That's where the excitement is. That's where the suspense. What do the Bucks do? What should they do? 813-699-5353. 813-699-5353. Let's see here. I'm not talking players till after the combine. We can talk about it, Tristan. Don't have to be like that. There's no uniform here. There's nothing that says you can't talk about players at the combine or free agents. Who says that? That's other radio shows. That's other TV shows. You're in the web, the evolution of sports talk television. You talk about whatever you want to. All right. Ari says Chris Harris is overrated. 31 years old. Maybe he's seen his best days, but he is going to get top money. Somebody's going to pay him, possibly the Las Vegas Raiders, because they're desperate. Who knows? You take a division foe, you let him play two games in a year against his former team. That may be a possibility. And of course, the Raiders will have a lot of money. Come in, preach. Thank you very much, Daniel. Tyrann Mathieu, Bucks should target offseason. Don't think that's going to happen, Corey, with that contract from the Kansas City Chiefs. And you talk about a player that was everywhere yesterday. I mean, just knocking wide receivers and running backs out and all over the place. Coverage, ability, and also, basically making you pay when you catch the ball short. Just making you pay. That's why Tyrann Mathieu was a big-time free agent pickup for the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, let's go out to sitting here. So how long were you supposed to wait to go to the playoffs? Another 10 years? No, not at all. Not another 10 years, but you have to let this develop. They've been drafting for the last couple of years. You finally have a coach. You're going in the right direction. Do you want to change quarterbacks? Do you think that you can basically move to another quarterback and he can come in and not have any mistakes? Do you think the defense is good enough? We'll see. The defense looks like it's good enough. Coach Arians thinks the defense is good enough. But what is the quarterback situation? What are you going to do with Shaq Barrett and Ndamukong Suh and JPP and Carl Nassib? What are you going to do in free agency? Are you going to add in free agency like a Jake Conklin or somebody like a David Johnson, like I think they could get? What are you going to do in the draft. It all happens this offseason. It's a big time offseason. And plus, the Super Bowl is in your own backyard. Don't you think the Glazers, not for 1 minute, are not thinking about this season and having this team go all in? All right, read some more comments. Can we get John Lynch back? No. But he may be in the Hall of Fame as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. That announcement will come very soon. We'll have that here on the Sports Web. O.J. Howard ranked 19th overall bottom feeder at blocking. Let's see what Mr. Castro said. Simmons in Denver would be a nice fit here. He's all pro safety as well. We'll see. We'll see. They may like what they have, but it's a good point. Ben Cornett, $28 million is a bargain these days. Jameis will get better and better under BA. I agree with that. $28 million a year. If they franchise him as 27, we'll see where the numbers lie. I'm not sure yet. All right, let's go back out to the phone lines here. Welcome back to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Johnny, Pittsburgh. I had to clarify something.
Yes, go ahead.
I said earlier that it was Darcy Glazer that was supporting Winston. I was in fact wrong about it. It was Joel Glazer that was supporting Winston. Darcy Glazer was split on getting Winston.
Okay, well, we know what you meant. We know that it was Joe Glazer, and we know that Darcy, we know the Glazers had definitely some input, but at the end of the day, I think Pat is absolutely right about this, that Lovie Smith had the final say, and that's why he agreed to become the coach, because he had all final say, and he wanted his guy, and that was his guy. Unfortunately, it turned out to where the Glazers felt like the defense wasn't improving. They weren't showing enough of an improvement on the field with being 8-24, and that's why they moved on. Was it a good move? I don't know. I thought at the time it was a good move. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe if you have Lovie Smith, Dirk Cutter doesn't go into this whole offense of just passing the ball all the time, because you remember you have Doug Martin that first year with Lovie Smith. He's a 1,000-yard rusher and think it goes over 1,200 yards.
Well, that's okay. Extension. Listen, that first year we had a fullback and we had Ernest Biner as a running backs coach.
Sure.
As soon as Ernest Biner was let go, as soon as they let our fullback go to one of the teams who is actually playing in the championships this year, then you see what happened to Doug Martin.
Sure.
We haven't had a running game since then. And people will say, oh, it was Doug Martin. Well, nobody has followed up yet, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, and you haven't had that running game, and that's what's been missing. A lot of people say, well, it's a passing league. It's a passing league. I don't care what anybody says. At the end of the day, you have to have balance to your offense, and if you don't have it, that will basically
even the Chiefs use a fullback. I'm sorry, man. You got to get rid of these 2 tight end sets who's wasting our time with no blockers. The blocking situation is killing me, dude. We need a fullback who can run the lane. A fullback basically breaks through a lane and runs the route and makes sure that the running back is clean.
Yeah.
And gets his yards. And that's what's going on in the league, and nobody's paying attention to it.
Nobody's paying attention to it, and there's some offenses that have that fullback, and there's others that don't, and the Bucs don't, and you're exactly right. You're on the money. Most of the teams that are in the playoffs still have that fullback. So do I think the Bucs are going to put that fullback in the offense? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're going to do that.
You know where this 2 tight end set came from? It came from the Patriots because they do the dink and dunk thing. That's great for the Patriots. They don't, and their fullbacks actually block. I mean, their tight ends actually block.
Sure.
But you get blocking tight ends like Kelsey and Kittle, and a fullback.
Yeah.
You got a powerhouse team, man.
I mean, nobody talks about Kittle's blocking.
New again, dude. It's as simple as that.
The guy is like Gronkowski deluxe. Not only does he block, but he also goes out and gets separation. And he's a big part of that 49er offense that a lot of people are not talking about, but you need to talk about here in the next couple of weeks. We'll be talking about it here on the Sports Web. Anything else, Johnny D?
That's it. I just wanted to clarify that. I don't like making mistakes like that. And I wanted to clarify that.
You're okay, buddy. You're okay. Thanks a lot, Johnny Dean. Give Tracy my love, all right?
All right. Later, guys.
Later, man. All right, there you go. Open phone line, 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. Let's go back to the comments here, trying something a little bit new. Don't be alarmed. Can't get any worse, says Ari. What is the latest rumor? The latest rumor is from Jason La Canfora of CBSSports.com that Phillip Rivers, there could be a buzz where the Bucs could be a possible landing spot for Phillip Rivers. There you go. Kansas City arm breakers. I don't know what that's all about. Never forget McNabb blowing chunks on the field. That's right, Chunky Soup with his mom on those commercials, and definitely blowing chunks in that Super Bowl versus the Patriots, where he was criticized by Terrell Owens, which was disappointing. But Owens definitely played like a man among boys with that broken ankle. But that was always the criticism with McNabb and Owens. That relationship seemed like it was going to work out at first, but definitely went by the wayside after that. Latest rumors, Rivers to Tampa, just dumb. I want to win now, not later. Well, we all want to. I think everybody wants to win at this point, but yeah, it's going to take, it may take another year. I'm not sure. I think this team could be, and I thought this team was a 10-win team, and they basically shot themselves in the foot. And it wasn't just the turnover situation. It was the penalties. It was the defense at the beginning of the year not playing well. Even in the last game versus the Falcons, Darian Stewart has to make that hit on 4th down, or he has to make that tackle instead of trying to hit him, high. If you do that, then you stop the Atlanta Falcons. You couldn't do it. And that's where you separate yourself from a great to a good to a bad team. You shoot yourself in the foot. You continue to do that. You lose games against the New York Giants because you can't kick. You lose games versus the Atlanta Falcons because you can't kick. You lose games in the Titans because you turn over the ball way too much, or the Carolina Panthers, as we talked about. Those games come back to haunt you. What about the Seahawks game, where the quarterback goes on the road and plays toe-to-toe with Russell Wilson and your defense can't get off the field? Disappointing. But that's a game you have to win, right? It's not a game you're expected to win, but it's a game you got to win. You don't win it, that comes back to haunt you. So, all right, let's see what Ben says here. William Romer, here's the thing. They won't pay him just $28 million every year for 5 years. That kind of contract will be front-loaded when, let's say, the contract happens, heaven forbid. He'll get at least $35 to $38 million in 2020, and he'll have at least $90 to $100 million guaranteed. The odds are he'll end up not earning that money more than the odds of him earning it. That's not a contract you want to give a quarterback with a turnover issue, despite his high number of touchdowns and passing yards. Williams says, anybody believe the Bucs have a shot at playing in Raymond James for the Super Bowl? Why not? Why not this team? Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Do the right things in free agency. Do the right things in the draft. Why isn't it possible? Look at the San Francisco 49ers. Last year, a 4-12 team. Where are they at now? The Super Bowl. Why? Drafting, development, free agency, coaching. It all comes together. You least expect it, right? The 49ers next year may not even make the playoffs or the Super Bowl. That is the NFL, not for long. So, of course, it's possible. Of course. All right. So, yeah, they will face away. What that's all about. Okay. Ari with a crying face. I don't know what that is, or laughing face. Every quarterback, Andy, has been to a Super Bowl except Kevin Cobb, McNabb, Foles, Mahomes, and Alex Smith in the running for league MVP. Mahomes is going to get paid. He absolutely is going to get paid. Let's see here. Joseph says, not after his losses this Super Bowl, Matt. I think he's still going to get paid. It doesn't matter if he loses the Super Bowl or not. If they can't stop your run, and then why the hell pass the ball? Corey says, poor Redskins, zero salary cap space, cut and trade all players on the roster. Don't think that's going to happen, Corey. Ari Moss, I don't think so. Joseph says, nah, he's still going to get paid. Read some more comments here. Kevin Cobb was in MVP discussions, or that's Kevin Cobb. Is it Nick Foles or Kevin Cobb? I think he got injured and had like a 27-4 season off the top of my head, and Vic was MVP discussion as well. Geez, that's way back. Guys are going way back tonight. All right, let's see here. Everyone forgets that Winston is just 26 years old, put up numbers with a crap team around him. Agree. Let's see who's going to cover Tyreek Hill, not Terry Hill. Terry Hill would be his brother. So good stuff there. Let me see what else we got. Try to read all these comments. If Brad Johnson won't be able to keep up with Mahomes, but that's why you have your defense, right? Negative Ghost Rider Patrick is going to be running for his life. Alex Smith contract can fall off as well, as Trent Williams could open up close to $40 million with that. Can't stop Mahomes with 4. Patriots fan going to watch Jimmy G in the Super Bowl. Phillip Rivers, a backup quarterback. I don't know about that. Did anyone see the breakdown on Jameis's 30 picks by Pewter Report? They did a very good job. That would be Deontay Moore, who is one of my favorite Texers of all time, which the guy would call him, but I read it. It was a good article. You can't just outscore them. You need to shut them down. Chiefs will outshoot you. They need to keep him in the pocket and cover those wide receivers. Need to force the Chiefs in the running game and hope to come out on top. All right. Do you like the new graphics? Hopefully you guys do. Get your face out there. San Francisco only hope is Mahomes makes mistakes like Aaron Rodgers did, which he made a lot of mistakes yesterday. 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, cost him. Chiefs have speed at every position, can't cover all of them. Corey says Bucks going to win Super Bowl 55 next year. I like it. Yeah, on Madden. Matt Colson, killing it always. Dilfer had 2 jobs to do in Baltimore. 1, protect the ball. 2, hand it off to Priest Holmes and Jamal Lewis. Was Priest Holmes on that team? Or was it Jamal Lewis? I thought it was Jamal Lewis. Just Jamal Lewis on that team. Priest Holmes? Really? And he threw the Shannon Sharp, too. Don't forget that. R.I.P. Chris Sims' spleen. Kind of like Garoppolo. Exactly, Ben. Dilfer just didn't lose the game. Let's see. Jameis was the consensus number 1 pick. He was, Tristan. Ultimately, Jameis was the Glazers pick, not Lovey's. Lovey had to agree with it because it was Glazers' call was final. We talked about that. Dilfer was a career underachieving quarterback. He never played up to his potential. He managed the Ravens. He wasn't who he was supposed to be, as he was, a number 6 overall pick out of Fresno State? Sam Weich's days? As that whole Mel Kiper tirade for the Colts passing up on him. Classic. Go looking on YouTube. Matt Colson Dilfer was what he was. He was a backup quarterback that played as a starter for years. Want to read all these comments, and then we'll take some more phone calls. Again, 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. Burrow is going to be doomed if he goes to Cincinnati. He will not develop properly up there. That's always the case, right? When your number 1 or top 5 pick, you don't go to a great team. You go to a bad team. That's why quarterbacks don't always work out. True. That's why you got to give them quarterback time. That's why you got to help your quarterback out, build an offense and defensive line. Dilfer was sound and made a Pro Bowl with us, but y'all stop with the Dilfer bashing. Riedel, Anthony, Jaquez Green, Carl Williams were our receivers. Bert Emanuel also being in that, I think. Jason Light still hot seat since fired Lovie Smith. Just got an extension, so I don't know what you're talking about, Corey. Dilfer was a punk when he got here. His ego was bigger than the stadium. He never attained the level player he should have because Florida is amazing. Okay, Rivers says 900 kids. Peter trolling at 1,000. Absolutely. Guy has all kinds of kids. Jeez. So having a kid right now, probably. Philip Rivers cast ESPN. I guess he's going to be working for ESPN. Philip Rivers to the Saints. Don't think that's going to happen. Matt Colson, we're in a run team first. With WD-40, it was hard for a quarterback to do much when not given the chance. I'm not saying Dilfer was Manning, but he had a lengthy career and did work. Bro, what are you smoking tonight? Kareem Hunt, Bucks could sign. Okay, Corey. Let's see, Patrick, DJ and Rojo. DJ handles the block. Pass, Rojo handles the core running. A 2 to 3 year deal for Johnson. Wow, a lot of comments tonight. Rivers had 4 more years in him to play. We'll see about that. Johnson may have too many miles and hasn't stayed healthy ever. Melton Gordon. I don't think that's Melton. That wouldn't be Henry Melton. That would be Melvin Gordon to Tampa. In the end, it all matters what happens in the draft. Need to see what route other teams could go. Top priority, improving the offensive line. Both running backs are under contract through next year. And let's see here. Dilfer was a Warrior. And there you go. That's your Webhead comments right there. Hopefully you liked it. What's going on, Rhett Matthew of Cannon Fire Podcast, which can be heard here. Of course, go to bucksreport.com for all your podcasting needs. Cannon Fire Podcast, Best of the Bay, with Rhett Matthew, 102.5 The Bone. Of course, on the Johnny B Show tonight. Catch him a lot of the nights there on 102.5 The Bone. Guy's doing a lot of big things. He's a young kid, and I want to say he's a young kid. He is young, compared to me, to him. I'm 41. The dude's like 21, 22 years old. He's going in the right direction. Real Bucks Talk with Michael Pless Buck What You Heard with Gene Thomas and Michael Pless Bucks Ball podcast. Of course, you've got the Red Flag podcast with Philip Schwagler. Congratulations to the Safety Harbor Resort for winning an award, doing that. And, of course, Beware of the Bay, which is on Wednesday nights. So there you go. What's going on, man? How you doing? Johnny, what's going on? And I see Red all the time at camp as he was out there. So let's see. Thanks for all the kind words, Sweet Pete. Oh, you're welcome. No problem. Everybody calls me Sweet Pete for some reason. And then, of course, we got Derek there. So just trying some new things tonight with this technology here on Facebook. Open phone line, 813-699-5353, 813-699-5353. Young Ritzy Rhett and Blake always giving out the nicknames, right? So we talked about it tonight. Steve Young's comments. In fact, tell you what, let's go back out to Steve Young, see what he said about Jameis Winston and what the Bucks should do here.
It's funny because I'm involved in this story, right? And Doug Williams, myself, and
Welcome to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from? We'll cut that sound off and go to you.
Hey, Peter, it's Derek from St. Pete.
Hey, what's going on, buddy? Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television.
Hey, what's up?
What's on your mind?
So, we keep talking about the draft and everything. I still don't think the secondary is where it needs to be.
Why would you say that?
Oh, you look at stats and whatnot, and I think, they gave up fourth most points per game. And
if you look inside the numbers here at the beginning of the season, that's what they did. But if you look at the last week 9 or week 10,
once JPP came back, they performed much better.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's your big guy. That's who you got to sign. I mean, everybody says.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But I still think they need a little bit of veteran presence after Hargrave didn't pan out. We were talking about David Johnson. I think Patrick Peterson would look good in a Bucs uniform too.
Well, I definitely think Patrick Peterson would be looking great in a Bucs uniform. Again, you take away some from the time from the young players, but Patrick Peterson would definitely work. The problem is, are the Cardinals really going to get rid of Peterson in his prime? He's still a good player at this point, right?
I think they could. I think if we could try to find a way to swing a trade, we talk about trading O.J. Howard.
Well, I mean,
maybe pairing him up with
does that work?
With their young quarterback.
Well, what if he blows up with the Cardinals? Are you happy with that trade? I mean, you're trading for Peterson, who's kind of, he's getting there where he's on the, I wouldn't say twilight, but he's seen his best days. He's not the same player. And then you have a young player like Howard. What if Howard blows up when you trade him away? Are you?
Yeah, that's the thing is, that's a trade though. It could work out, or you could keep Howard, and we could keep sitting here kicking ourselves over the fact that we drafted him. Meanwhile, we could have drafted another position.
Don't start with Dalvin Cook, because if you start with Dalvin Cook,
no. I mean, I still love the Vita pick. I really do. I still think we look at safety, we look at Derwin James. I think this year, I think there's been a lot of reports about Grant Delpit, a bunch of guys, safety wise.
Sure.
I could see them putting a Band-Aid on the offensive line. You've got 3 guys that are paid really highly. Arians talked about accountability.
Yeah.
They need to be accountable. You got Kappa that they like a little bit. They could probably maybe move him over to right tackle if we can't get anybody. And they could plug somebody in at guard and say, hey, look, just like last offseason where they were like, yeah, the secondary was fixed. And it clearly wasn't,
Well, it took a while. It took a while. And I think, a lot of people, they go back to that. And at the time you were thinking, because those players were performing in training camp, and he was looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he even came out and said, look, there's some guys in training camp that are not doing what they were doing in training camp during the season. And that's why
of course, training camp,
right. But that's effort. And they basically called out Vernon Hargreaves, and Hargreaves was off this team. Wasn't it amazing when you get rid of Hargreaves, how much better these young players play? Because you're taking away from their playing time. So you give them that playing time, they get experience, They basically make their mistakes. Jamel Dean showed it, right? He made his mistakes in the Seattle game.
Yeah.
And then after that, he gets confidence and he's starting to play. So I'm not necessarily all on saying, this secondary can't be better than it was in night. I think it's going to be a lot better because you just have that second year of progression. We've seen it before. You think that they're going to come out the next year and be good, and then they don't turn out good. So that's the risk you take. If you don't go out and get a free agent corner who's a veteran presence like a Patrick Peterson or Chris Harris or somebody of that, maybe even a James Bradbury. People are not talking about James Bradbury, but he could be a free agent from the Carolina Panthers. Would you like to have him?
But that's also depending on how much cap space they have left over after re-signing the rest of the defensive linemen.
Right. It depends on where your priorities
that's clearly their priority is signing the defensive line.
Right, and that's where, and we talk about this all the time, right? If you build that line where you can get pressure on the quarterback, it makes that back end that much better. And this is what Blake Anthony was saying in one of our chats. He was saying, you look at the 49ers, you look at the Bucs and how they've been built. The 49ers have drafted constantly that defensive line, and that's why they have not only those players getting after it, but also they have that depth, right? So then they also have that rotation, and that's important to have that rotation in a Solomon Thomas and an Armstead and a Buckner going out and getting a D Ford and a Bosa. Those guys continue, like, that secondary maybe is not the best. You have Richard Sherman, but who else do you have? The linebacking core didn't have Quan Alexander, but yet they're playing lights out. Why? Because that defensive line is getting after it, and they're also stopping the run, and it's creating those opportunities for the back end to be successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I wou'n't be surprised if they did draft an offensive lineman at 14.
I hope so.
The Bucs,
I would like to see it.
They've put Band-Aids on the offensive line for years and said, hey, yeah, it's fixed.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You definitely need to draft an offensive lineman. I think that's your number one priority, especially with giving up 47 sacks. Whether you sign Jameis Winston to a contract or you sign a veteran quarterback, you still need to protect your quarterback. DeMar Dotson most likely won't be here. The offensive line didn't play well. And I'm saying, what if they go with Kappa at the right tackle, then you get a guard? Or you leave Kappa alone, you leave him at the right guard, you hope that he can stay healthy, you get a right tackle, and then later on, maybe you draft a left tackle, a swing tackle in case Donovan Smith or that right tackle goes out. Or maybe you draft a guard. It's never a bad thing, bud, to go with a defensive tackle or defensive line pick or an offensive line, because that's where your football team is built in the guts with your offense and your defensive line. Anything else?
Remember Arians saying that we could win with any quarterback? I wouldn't be surprised, if we go to re-sign the defensive line and it takes up a big chunk of that cap space, and for some reason, Winston's agent or whatever's going on inside his head saying he wants X amount of money, and there's somebody like Phillip Rivers that is willing to take a little bit less money.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't.
I mean, it's going to come down to what they want to do, right?
Yeah, I like what you said about going all in. They do need to go all in. They need to look at who they have, look at, the amount of draft picks they have, and then you look at, what do they need to do to actually make it? Knowing that Carolina is going to be in a rebuild, knowing that Atlanta has had a really up and down few seasons ever since their Super Bowl loss, really they have one true competition in the division, and that's going to be the Saints.
Yeah, it's going to be the Saints, and you never know what the situation with their quarterback. You assume that it's going to be Drew Brees, but you would think that Old Man River one of these days would have a bad season, and he got hurt last year. You had Teddy Bridgewater. Well, they may not have Teddy Bridgewater, so that would definitely play a part in the Saints. And you're exactly right. Right now with this division, you're in transition, but you just never know with the NFL. Anything else?
No, I'm looking forward to them stepping up, man. I'm looking forward to postseason berth.
Great call as always. What's your name again?
It's Derek.
Hey, Derek. All right, man. Thanks a lot for calling the Sports Web. Definitely don't be a stranger. All right, boss?
All right, man. I won't.
All right, there you go. Derek from St. Pete. Open phone line, 813-699-5353 as we go into the wee hours of the morning, almost to midnight here on the East Coast. I always wanted to say that because fan of sports talk radio. My family will tell you. I grew up on Bob Kemp from Las Vegas. I grew up on JT the Brick. I listened to sports talk radio even when I went to school and went to middle school and high school. Stayed up all night long listening to sports talk radio. So it's kind of cool for me. It's kind of nice to do this late at night here on the Sports Web live on Bucks Report. Let's take some more comments here. We'll get some more phone calls. And if you continue, well, there we go. Welcome to the Sports Web. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Johnny again. Guess what?
Yeah.
That chat line's getting me going, man.
You like that, huh?
Aries talking about.
Well, we gotta call back. I think it was your you were so excited that the Wi-Fi knocked you out here. So let's go ahead. Let's go back to the chat line here. Keep JW draft smart. Lots of O-line and running back in the draft. Sign a vet, safety, or DB. JW can win. Bucks can win. If we stop passing 50 times a game, we need to get closer to 55-45 or 60-40 offense. Good stuff. Johnny, once again, call back in. I think it was your Wi-Fi. I don't know what happens. It's been said Bell wants to go back to Pittsburgh. It's certainly possible. We'll see if they want him back. All right. Welcome back to the Sports Web, Johnny Dean. What's on your mind?
I was talking about Delpit, I think.
Yeah, Delpit. Go ahead.
Yeah, we just say no to Delpit, okay, everybody? Just calm down. We saw what he was in the championship game. He folded like a wet deck of cards, all right?
A wet deck of cards. I've never heard that before, but I'm definitely going to use that. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, the secondary, I'm fine with the secondary, man.
Okay.
And like I said in the chat, there's a 3-year plan for a reason. It's like the Niners are where they are in their 3rd year. Okay, everybody gets so hyped about the draft, and then they get these expectations through the year because of the draft. But it takes time to develop those draftees.
Yep.
The following year is when the 3rd year, the Bucks, the 3rd year are going to be in the playoffs. I guarantee that. I will guarantee that. 9-7 this year. I'm saying 9-7 this year. They might surprise me. They might not. But that's what I expect.
Well,
the 3rd year is where you expect to see the development. It's not in the 1st year of the draft. When you draft a player, that player, especially the Arian system, people, and it's a complicated playbook these guys have to learn.
I think we could, Johnny. I think we could definitely expect a big time jump this year. And I'll tell you why. It's in the air. And I know fans are saying it. The Super Bowl's in your own backyard, but you got to believe that the Glazers are pushing Arians and go all in. Do everything you have to do to make sure you make the playoffs. Because look. At the end of the day, if you make it as a 6 seed or a 1 seed or a 2 seed, as long as you get in, you never know what happens, especially if you get hot.
All right. Looking at the schedule, I'm saying 9-7. If we can win the division, I see 10 wins. If we win the division, if we can take the Saints out of this equation, they're our only competition to win a division. All right.
Right.
But we're looking at wild card at the best next year. I'm talking about actually playing seriously to get to a Super Bowl is going to be the 3rd year. It's not going to be this season.
It's the expectations. Somebody said the expectations are realistic. I just don't know because they could be the San Francisco 49ers. Who's to say they don't go 7-9 and have that big jump? But you're right.
It's the development part, people. You got to develop players. We saw this year how rocky the road was for those young guys. You're throwing them in there. They have to develop. They have to learn a playbook 5 times thicker than what they've ever seen in their life.
But that's why I'm saying I think the development could be better and the expectations could be higher because you look at those players and how they played at the end.
It all depends on how well the rookies that you draft develop. And some of these guys don't pick up playbooks right away. Some of them take longer. Some of them can come in and pick up a playbook. Maybe you get a 4th round pick who comes in and says, "Oh shit, this is easy," and picks up the playbook, while the 1st round pick isn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. No, and look, that's why I think maybe they go into free agency instead of drafting a tackle. And I know you hate this thought, but what if there is a Jake Conklin out there at 26 years old? Are you okay with getting him as a former 1st round pick to go in there and slide in there in the right time?
Do you know what you have to pay to get these tackles, man? Oh my God, we've already. I see us spending our money on the team that we have right now.
Okay.
We're going to re-sign everybody that we can.
Okay. All right.
And then we're going to draft to replace that money. And that's business. That's financial sense.
Yeah. It's financial. I mean, there could be some cuts down the road. You could have you have one of the highest paid offensive lines. So could there be a head or two?
At the moment, I hate to bring this back around to Winston again because I can't stand talking about Winston all the time. But right at the moment, Winston is the linchpin in this whole thing.
He is.
What we do with Winston decides what we do with the team. That's the linchpin.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll definitely see. I mean, that'll be the biggest decision of this. You know, after the Super Bowl, you're going to have the combine. You're going to have all these free agency rumors. Once the combine is over and the senior,
it's called the NFL hype season.
It is. I love it. I love it here on the Sports Web. We talked about it last year.
By the time we get to the first preseason game, the Bucs fans are going to be so hyped that we're going to win the Super Bowl. Hands down, there's no way we lose. But that's where I always try to pump. That's where I always try to pump the brakes because once those expectations get to the season, and then fans see, we lose a game, and it's all blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
You know,
it's up and down.
You got to get realistic expectations out there, man. It's not realistic to think that we're going to jump over teams that have already been built and have depth. It's not realistic.
I agree, but I do think it could be a different year. Just looking at it, looking how much money they have.
I believe it's going to be a great year. 9-7 is a good year for us, man. You got to look at it that way. Look at the last friggin' few years, man. We had a 7-9 season this year, which was great compared to the last couple of years. And next year, a 9-7. That's progress. It's called progress. And you jump from a 9-7 season and have added depth on your team. Then you're talking Super Bowl next season. You understand that? And that's when you can say, okay, we're going to the Super Bowl, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And you always got to keep in mind the schedule that you're playing.
Yeah,
they say you got to play who you play, but no, it doesn't work that way. The Bucs have been stuck with the top 5 hardest schedules for the last 5 years, man. I'm sick of that.
Well, I'm sick of that too, and we'll see how that schedule plays out. It can't be any worse than it was last year. Knock on wood. Thanks a lot.
No, actually, it's a decent schedule, and that's why I went 9-7 instead of 6-10.
Well, you're not going to start your
8,
first 8 games out on the road. I mean,
no, absolutely not. That was an unrealistic expectation. Peter Blake.
hey, look, the coach, Johnny Dean, agree with me that this team could have been a 10-win team, all right? A little here, a little there.
It could have been, but that's the difference in almost every game is just there's not a lot of blowouts in NFL.
Well,
most games are decided by 1 point or one scored games. You know what I mean?
And you got to kick field goals from 34 yards. Against the Giants, this kills me. That game,
you got to have the depth in the run game to be able to pound the rock when you need to pound the rock. We don't. We didn't. And I know you're big about play calling, but you can only call what you have the weapons to call.
Well, I agree. And if you don't have confidence,
that we don't have the offensive line,
right,
and we don't have the running backs that can break through there and keep the run game going.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the confidence in your players like a Jones to pass protect, and you have Barber, basically you've been found out by other teams, and that's why I see them.
Or you call a couple of screen plays, and you got a tight end standing there letting linebackers walk through with his hands at his side.
That's your boy right there, OJ Howard. I got a jersey coming for you, and I bet you'll pull LeBron James and burn it right at your feet when you get it. Thanks a lot, Johnny Dean, for calling the Sports Web. All right.
All right, later, guys.
All right, 813-699-5353. Want to read these comments, and then we will definitely get out of here. It's past midnight at this point. I've got to get up for work in the morning. You know, I got a sales job. I got to talk there, and I got to talk here, but I'd rather talk with you. So if you want to chime in, definitely chime in. Want to read these comments, and then I will definitely get out of here. Want to make sure everybody gets their comments read tonight as we're trying this new technology here and just trying to make sure we get – okay, we're right there. Okay, we read that. Good stuff. Wants to go back to Pittsburgh. The time is now to fix this damn line. Can't judge Delpit on just the last game. Agree with that. But it is against top competition, Ari. So that's what a lot of people are looking at. You know, top competition. That's the standard. SEC competition. How did he play versus Clemson? And the ACC, not very good. Although he had some good moments in that game where He caused a fumble. He got a blitz. He got after it. So we'll see how it works out. I'm not all about drafting a safety unless it is an Adams or it's an Ed Reed type of player. And honestly, for me, if you're going to go in that direction, I think you go defensive line. You see what happens in free agency, or you go offensive line. That's just me. Let's see here. Ari says Edwards got beaten coverage a lot. He's a great tackler, though, on run plays and played some nickel corner. But once again, they invested, a second or third round pick in him? So you think they're going to give up on him and draft another player? I don't know about that. Mika Fitzpatrick will be the Bucs off season. Don't think so. I think he's with the Steelers now. Ari Moss, don't mistaken Adams and Stewart for Edwards. It's a quarterback market between draft picks and bridge quarterbacks. I would be led to believe that no team is really banging the drum for JW, but you would be surprised, Tristan, that there are teams out there that are willing to pay the money for a Jameis Winston. Remember, he won the passing title. He had over 30 touchdowns and 33, and it was only second to Lamar Jackson. So it's not like he's a bum, right? It's not like he's thrown 30 interceptions every year, which has been put out there and portrayed. It's a ridiculous thought. He's only averaged 14 and a half interceptions before this year. It was a new offense. So I definitely think there are teams out there that were willing to pay him the money. How much? It takes one. It takes one team. It takes the Denver Broncos. It takes the Chicago Bears. It takes somebody that's willing to take the chance and say, you know what? If we put him in our offense, we believe we can get to the playoffs. That's all you got to do. That's it. Should have got him when we could. Okay. Tristan says you must have some magnificent drugs, bud. Good stuff. Mentioning Corey Brown. I sent my daughter to her gymnastics camp today in her Bucs hoodie due to the weather. It was cold today. What the hell happened? Who turned off the air? What's that all about? Going outside. I'm going outside thinking in a short sleeve shirt. It's 45 out. The heck is that all about? Getting Johnny fired up. That's what we do here. He's speaking facts on expectations. That he is. That's why he's the voice of reason. And that's why I'm the guy that kind of tries to rally you guys up. Bucs draft well better than the Browns. I guess so. I'm just saying I would be surprised if we drafted secondary due to our past drafts, giving up fourth most points per game, third most passing yards a game, and every year saying it's fixed. But where does it start? It starts with your pass rush, right? Starts up front. To me, that's what you've got to continue to improve on. And if there's a pass rusher on the board or a defensive tackle, I think you go in that direction instead of a secondary player. Could be wrong. Of course, this is after locking up the defensive line. Well, that's a big key. What about Brady coming to Tampa? He's not going to be cheap. You want a 42, 43-year-old quarterback behind that offensive line? I mean, I get it. He's got the resume for it. Does he want to come to the Bucs? Do you think he's convinced? I mean, there was reports from Westwood One. He talks to, I'm trying to think of the guy's name right now. The guy that did the reporter. It's not Jim Brown. It's I can't think of him right now. He was a reporter for The Decision too. He was on Westwood One. He was talking to him, and basically he said he's open to free agency. So by guy, okay, Corey, we don't have free safety other than Justin Evans, who's probably done, and Dixon, who we don't know much about. Agree. No thanks on Conklin. Mike Edwards, second round pick from last year. That's correct. Let's see here. He's not what we need. I don't think Winston needs to be a main factor. The defensive line needs to be. Defense wins championships. Arians said he can win with another quarterback, just stating what he said. And a lot of people look at those comments and say, well, he said that, so basically he wants to move on. Maybe it's negotiation, right? I mean, he's not going to come out and say, I want you, because then where's the negotiation? Okay, you want 30, 35 million? Okay, there you go. It's yours. It's like going and buying a car. You don't go in and buy a car and say, I want that car. There's no negotiation. Salesman sold you. Okay, there you go. You'll take the price. We'll sell it to you. I mean, I've been there. I mean, she looks good. Usually it's a Mustang. Red. Drives great. Don't even look at the miles. Don't even see if the car works. Leather seats, great. That's what they sell you on. Go in there, look at the outside. Don't even pay attention to the price, how much it's going to be a month. And then you end up with a $418 car payment, right? That's what happens. Not a good thing. New uniform 2020. There were some rumors out there. We can't substantiate the new uniforms. I don't know. The uniforms, are they the best? No, they're terrible. They probably need to be changed. Do you want it to be creamsicle? I'm not sure. We need a true center fielder. I think a lot of people have said that. Need a big upgrade from Andrew Adams. Agree. I'm talking Super Bowl every season. Make your damn kicks. Don't lead the league in turnovers of 41 total. Meanwhile, the Aints have 8. Good point. How about Eli Manning in Tampa? Why? You want Eli Manning? The Giants don't. You want him to come in here behind this offensive line? Okay. Don't have a 3-yard per running back. That'd be good. Your offensive line has to open up some holes, right? Winston's the linchpin. How they pay out free agents, everything in the offseason depends on the Winston deal. It does. It does. Make no mistake. Chicago Bears are in the market for a new quarterback. They're making calls. Well, they've also come out and said that Mitchell Trubisky is their guy. So which is it? Is it Jameis Winston or is it Mitchell Trubisky? Would they be interested in Jameis Winston? You better believe they would. I think they would. Don't you? Not saying JW is bad. And 17 degrees here right now, Peter. Quit whining. Agree. Spoken like a true Pennsylvanian, because I'm a Floridian. And as I always say here, when you're from Florida all your life, you're basically a Chihuahua. You have no fur to counteract the cold. So hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Tomorrow night, we'll have Mr. 40-year man himself, WTSP Channel 10, WFTS Channel 28, Tampa Bay sports broadcasting legend, Mr. Al Keck, on the evolution of sports talk television. Like us on Facebook, like Bucks Report. Go check us out on Twitter and also YouTube, because we're on every night. And I always say this to start the show and end it. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake. Have a great night. You're now in the Sports Web, a sports talk show for the hardcore fan. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense.
At Life's a Beach Realty, we're all about life on the beach. Stunning Panama City Beach and one of the most beautiful properties on the Gulf Coast. Shores of Panama. Radiant, elegant, and spectacular. Steps away from white sugar sand, every room overlooks the turquoise of the Gulf of Mexico. Come in for your tour today. Life's a Beach Realty is your gateway to Shores of Panama, the shores, and a whole lot more.
Come to Sam Ash for hundreds of exclusive holiday deals on music and sound gear from the most iconic brands. Save big on professional and starter guitars, drums, digital pianos, horns, violins, DJ, and electronic production equipment. Supercharge your home studio with deals on podcasting, streaming, and AV equipment like speakers, microphones, headphones, and acoustic treatment. Plus, with 36 months no-interest financing on thousands of items, you can get the gear of your dreams right now. From our incredible selection and service to our lowest price guarantee for over 95 years, real musicians know you only go to Sam Ash.
My dad had a heart attack at 56 years old. He passed away at 63, and his main problem was high cholesterol. That was the main problem. And I've thought about that. I'd try anything to lower my cholesterol, to stop the chances of having a heart attack.
When I retired, I really had to be conscious about what I put into my body. Interestingly, I was also told I should probably take a statin. And I've always resisted medication like that because it feels unnatural to me. And so when I heard about this product that can naturally lower my cholesterol, lower my risk of heart disease and other types of conditions that come from having high cholesterol. I jumped on it. Has a lot of fiber in this, so it keeps you regular. It makes you feel good. And actually, interesting, it tastes good. You know, sometimes you see these things and you wonder what it's going to taste like. This one actually tastes really good. In fact, my kids even like having.
Sobering reminder: heart disease is the #1 cause of death for men and women. No wonder staying heart healthy is so very important these days. And we're learning that a few healthy choices can help prevent heart disease. Enter the inventor of Gatorade, Dr. J. Robert Cade. No secret what Cade and Gatorade did for thirst and performance. And Dr. Cade's Cholesterade is so much more than a thirst quencher. Cholesterade is a refreshing, high-fiber natural drink that could dramatically lower cholesterol and reduce the risk of heart disease. In fact, Cholesterade has twice the fiber of any other product on the market today. Independent studies show that 2 daily servings of Cholesterade can stunningly lower bad cholesterol by up to 20%. Dr. Cade knew firsthand the troubles of high cholesterol and adverse side effects of cholesterol-lowering prescription medications, also known as statins. Dr. Cade knew that a daily increase in fiber could lower the levels of cholesterol, so Dr. Cade invented Cholesterade as much for himself as anybody. Cholesterade is a powder that is mixed with water or juice. Cholesterade is all natural, no preservatives, gluten-free, and probiotic with natural flavors. Studies have shown lower cholesterol numbers without the use of prescription medication. Cholesterade helps all people looking to add fiber to their diet. Cholesterade, combined with a healthy diet and exercise, can help you get your cholesterol under control. Entertainer Rod Adams personally knows the benefits of Cholesterade.
Hey, my name is Ron Adams. You may know me as an entertainer from maybe one of my shows, like my Elvis show. But I'm also a 55-year-old guy that needs to stay in shape. I realized that my cholesterol was getting way out of hand. I went to the doctor and he said, you need to do something. But there wasn't anything to do other than maybe get on a statin, which I already knew was dangerous. And then I found out about Cholesterade. Started taking it 3 times a day. 8 weeks later, my cholesterol dropped dramatically from over 300 to under 200. The good cholesterol went from 18 to 36. Cholesterade is what's keeping me healthy.
Independent studies have shown that Cholesterade users have seen their bad cholesterol drop by more than 21%. Triglycerides drop by some 50%. And good cholesterol improve by nearly 13%. Cholesterade in the fight for lowering bad cholesterol. You can find Cholesterade by ordering at www.cholesterade.com. You can find it on Amazon and at major retailers nationwide.